Throw this switch, and the Enterprise should answer.
The inclusivity and it knows no bounds. I can't think of an element of the entire show or series that isn't that way.
Activism. Love it.
I get so emotional because I feel like shooting the show, it taught me that my capacity to love is deeper than I thought.
Next.
I think I swallowed my combat.
I'm sure a bunch of you have heard that we are expanding the Star Trek universe. I actually don't feel entirely qualified to be the one to do it.
Nerdrotic.com.
Greetings, Trekkies and Trekkers. Star Trek Starfleet Academy is finally finished, and whether Paramount knows it or not, so is Star Trek. Within just under 2 years, we've seen 3 mighty franchises that were the foundation of pop culture and nerddom across the world meet their sad, apathetic, subversive, unnecessary, yet inevitable end. Star Wars, Doctor Who, and Star Trek. And while these are zombie franchises that have been reanimated over and over again over the last decade just to be defiled, but even a zombie can die because the definitive kill shot of all 3 of these franchises has been The Acolyte, Doctor Who Series 15, and Starfleet Academy. And all 3 have a lot in common, including but not limited to excessive alphabet community themes aimed at a younger audience that didn't watch, a clear disdain of the canon created by their betters, an open hostility to the fandom that made them the franchises that they were, casting writers based on their identity over hiring them for their ability, taking thrilling, thoughtful, and timeless stories that entertain millions and turning them into a platform for the message to educate thousands. All 3 franchises, disrespectively controlled by Disney, the BBC, and Paramount, were allowed to fail miserably over the course of a decade. The Acolyte, Doctor Who Series 15, and Starfleet Academy have been mocked into oblivion, and with all 3 franchises over the course of that decade, there hasn't been a shred of masculinity to be found. The Acolyte was Kathleen Kennedy's Disney Star Wars in its final form. Doctor Who Series 15 was Russell T. Davies' Doctor Who in his final form, and Star Trek Starfleet Academy is Kurtzman Trek in its final form. What else do they have in common? Well, The Acolyte was the worst Star Wars ever made, Doctor Who Series 15 was the worst Doctor Who ever made, and Starfleet Academy is the worst Star Trek ever made. And while we did release individual reviews of Starfleet Academy, it was always intended to be one video. Welcome to the supercut of Star Trek Starfleet Academy Season 1. Now, to be fair, the opening voiceover for Star Trek Starfleet Academy is a pretty good description of what happened to Star Trek.
Long ago, Starfleet Academy took the finest minds, hearts, and spirits of every generation and taught them to be lifelong explorers of space. One day, fate handed us an unimaginable loss.
The show starts out with our main character, Caleb, with his mom, played by Tatiana Maslany, along with Paul Giamatti, and oh brother, I hope you're getting a good paycheck for this, playing a half Klingon, half Tellarite. They are being held for the crime of murder while they were trying to steal food. Why would somebody need to steal food in the 32nd century when there's replicators everywhere? Well, we'll get to that. Paul Giamatti's Noose Braca is sent to prison, and Tatiana Maslany is sent to a rehabilitation camp, where the judge, Nalaake, I hate that name, played by Holly Hunter, specifically says it's not a prison.
You will be placed in a rehabilitation camp. It's not prison.
And she can have visitation rights with her son, who she is now obviously going to be separated from because she committed a crime. Caleb is now going to be a ward of the Federation until, of course, this small child steals Nalaake's comm badge and escapes. Now, how does a small child escape from this facility on a distant planet during a dust storm? I have no idea. We jump ahead 15 years later and we find out Holly Hunter, and no, I'm not going to call her by her name in the show, quit after this because she feels remorse for separating a child from his mother. I'm not really sure why, because that's usually what happens when a mother is, say, an accessory to murder, but I'm pretty sure it's so they could force this line in the show.
Separating children from their parents isn't exceptional. It's reprehensible.
Message!
You know, it's subtle, but I think they're trying to say something there. And because Alex Kurtzman's not going to let the STD dream die, we get our first returning character, Admiral Vance.
It's none of our shit, you know.
And gonna be real, that's the only line I remember the guy delivering, and I've seen all of Star Trek Discovery. Anywho, he informs her that they will be bringing back Starfleet Academy, and it's gonna be in San Francisco, California. Admiral Vance asks her to be Chancellor, which she turns down, but then he entices her in with the possibility of finding Caleb. And wouldn't you know it, they find Caleb. And I know what you're thinking, that's pretty convenient considering you just don't shoot from the hip when you're hiring a Chancellor of Starfleet Academy. It's something that probably would have taken some thought. So was he going to hire her before they found Caleb, knowing that he would be the only thing she would come back for? Or did he think of it after he got Caleb? And the best thing to do is not think about these things when it comes to Kurtzman Trek. Following in his mother's footsteps, Caleb got busted, and instead of going to prison, he's offered an opportunity to go to Starfleet Academy by the woman who separated him from his mother, Holly Hunter. Now, you would think this would be a good opportunity to show character growth with both of these characters through the conflict of them learning to trust each other over the course of the season, and no, they just kind of get along immediately. Holly Hunter informs Caleb that his mother has broken out of prison.
Your mother broke out of prison a year ago.
I think this is a good time to tell you one of the hallmarks of Kurtzman Trek is not only does it not pay attention to Star Trek canon, it doesn't pay attention to its own show. Because not 2 minutes earlier, Holly Hunter said that she wasn't going to a prison.
It's not prison.
And that's going to be the premise for this season anyway, and it'll probably roll into the second. And yes, it's going to get a second season, and we'll get to that as well. As far as the plot goes, well, there isn't really one in the first episode. It's more of the friends we meet on the way. Caleb arrives at Starfleet Academy, and immediately we hear the voice of Stephen Colbert as Digital Dean, because that'll get the youngsters to watch. And immediately we get that trademark modern vernacular in Kurtzman Trek.
That's all is now. Make sure to visit, because sometimes hunger is the greatest enemy of all.
Oh, and the Starfleet Academy is a ship that looks exactly like the comm badge. Now, there's some debate on what it looks like. Some say a dream catcher. My producer X-Ray Girl says it looks like a vagina. But if it wasn't for Book's ship in Star Trek Discovery, this would get my vote as the worst looking ship in Star Trek. And as far as those friends we meet on the way are concerned, joining the pantheon of iconic Star Trek characters like Kirk, Spock, McCoy, Scotty, Uhura, Picard, Data, Troy, Worf, Riker, Cisco, Quark, Odo, Janeway, Chakotay, Tuvok, 7 of 9, Archer, and T'Pol. Our Lara Thok, the stern and abrasive first officer and drill instructor, who is half Klingon and half Jem'Hadar. Now, never mind the fact that Jem'Hadar are a genetically engineered race that's traditionally male, who are bred in pods and can't procreate, but I guess one of them got the functional junk option package. And yes, this is a drill instructor who is in charge of things like physical fitness and demands people do things like push-ups.
2 or 2 push-ups. Now! I said now! Right now! On the floor! Hey, up, down, up.
And because apparently Kurtzman Trek was lacking for girl bosses, she's a girl boss.
Yes, idiot, back.
And I know she's a drill instructor, and that's what drill instructors do, but reverse the roles on this one. Do you think Alex Kurtzman would ever film a scene of a man doing this to a woman? No. Speaking of girl bosses, there's Holly Hunter, who's both the Chancellor of Starfleet Academy and the captain of the USS Athena, which is the Starfleet Academy. And she's a free spirit who doesn't like to wear regulation footwear and sit in her captain's seat like a 5-year-old. She also likes activism and is an advocate for social change.
Activism. Love it. Advocating for social change matters.
That nonsense is centuries behind us.
Robert Picardo has returned to scorch his legacy as the EMH Doctor, and he's gotten off to a good start by taking a page from the Lucasfilm Rings of Power and hell, Kurtzman Trek playbook by taking a preemptive shot at the fandom before the show was even released, by calling any critics of the show bigots, because that always works. There's Darum the Kahonian, a new race made up by Kurtzman Trek, who is a bully and a lovable asshole who will become fast friends with everybody.
Like I said, I'm Klingon, bitch.
And one of the species he bullies is the Klingon, Jaden. Get it? Jaden?
Stupid.
A character best described by the actor who plays him.
We are redefining what it means to be a warrior. You know what I mean? Like, a warrior doesn't always mean picking up a weapon and going into battle.
Klingons do not express feeling.
And yes, he is a Klingon who doesn't want to be a warrior. He wants to be a doctor, and he likes to watch birds.
I watch birds. Klingons do not allow themselves to be probed.
I'm gonna go out on a limb here. I think they modulate his voice.
A warrior does not let a friend face danger alone. A warrior does not let a friend face danger alone.
Then there's the sentient hologram Sam, who was only 4 months old, but she was programmed to be a rotund 17-year-old who wants to eventually integrate with a biologic. I mean, how? And you're gonna have to find a big one. But she checks a couple of boxes because you have your body positivity and neurodivergent representation, because she's awkward and doing wacky things like not knowing how to shake hands or asking you what your favorite landmass or volcano is.
So, do you have a favorite Earth restaurant or landmass or volcano?
Now, I think this is unintentionally hilarious because in about 10 years, people are going to look back on this the same way people look back on blackface. Again, I think it's hilarious. We also have Genesis, who I couldn't tell you a thing about. And because there isn't enough awkward neurodivergency representation in Kurtzman Trek, we have Cadet Pickford, who does things like eat her comm badge.
I think I swallowed my comm badge.
You know, because those silly Billy autistic kids are always trying to eat their phones. She also runs around screaming red alert during a red alert.
Red alert! Red alert! Red alert!
You don't have to say it.
And she's jealous of the other neurodivergent kid.
You're absorbing all the energy in the room. For real, you're like a sponge.
And let's keep in mind that the producers of the show created it specifically to attract new young viewers, and this is what they think of you. Later on in episode 2, they introduce Brett Cooper. Brett, taking time from her content creation on YouTube, is the daughter of a Betazoid president who's deaf. And I guess you're just supposed to ignore the fact that while it does vary, they are a telepathic race. And I guess you have to also ignore the fact that they can do things like give Geordi back his sight and put Picard's consciousness in a robot body. But considering that Kurtzman Trek has people in wheelchairs and fat people, I guess you just gotta roll with it. And yes, Scotty was fat, but that was also centuries ago in the timeline. Oh, and I don't want to leave out the return of another Star Trek Discovery character, Tig Notaro, who is breaking a lot of ground here with her acting skill by playing Tig Notaro, a sarcastic lesbian girl boss.
I only know 2 things, kid. Number 1, old age and treachery always triumph over youth and a smart mouth. Number 2, a smart mouth isn't worth a damn without wisdom.
Shut up.
The range with this woman is something to behold. And last but not least, Paul Giamatti as the Klingorite, Nus Braka, that's right, half Klingon, half Tellarite, who is the master of modern vernacular analogies that make absolutely no sense.
Time, with its infinite sense of humor, will always fold upon itself like an origami chicken.
What the f are you talking about, man?
And that is your cast of the latest Kurtzman show, names that will go down in herstory and will be remembered in the minutes to come. Now, why do they have to reboot Starfleet in Star Trek? Well, that's because of the burn, something the vast majority of you will never have heard of because the vast majority of you have not seen Star Trek Discovery because you're smart. I will try to keep this as brief as possible. A young Kelpian who is the same race as Saru, who you probably haven't heard of because he's in Star Trek Discovery, due to in utero exposure to dilithium radiation, bonded with dilithium on the molecular level. As you may or may not know, dilithium crystals are used in Star Trek to regulate the warp core, and it's used in most ships, but not all. Anyway, this young alien who was molecularly bonded to the dilithium cried for his mama, and every ship in the known galaxy and possibly universe blew up.
That is an entirely implausible plot development.
Don't believe me? Look it up. Anyway, that destroyed the possibility of interstellar travel for the Federation for over 100 years. The best part is, there was an overarching plot called The Burn in a show whose acronym is STD.
That the burn is finally behind us.
You just can't make this stuff up, and I guess the best comparison would be, say you grew up next to a nuclear power plant and you bonded with the uranium on the molecular level and then stubbed your toe and blew up every nuclear sub and aircraft carrier on the planet. Simply put, this show, along with all the previous Kurtzman Trek shows, save for one, is dumb.
Logic is an integral part of narrative structure.
And comparing it to the CW would be an insult to the CW, and it's best described by my good friend Drinker as anti-entertainment. And like I said earlier, the plot to both of the first 2 episodes of this show that you will most likely not see are barely worth mentioning and dumb as well. At the end of the first episode, all the kids work together to fight off the pirate, Paul Giamatti, who has tic-tac-toe cut into his fade, who captured the ship to steal its warp drive, but he was defeated by Caleb and his master hacking skills because the kids love hackers these days. In the second episode, we find out that the Betazoid homeworld, Beta Z, during the burn had become isolationist and put a wall around their planet? I mean, wouldn't it be a bubble? But either way, based. But the Federation thinks this is bad for the youth and they should rejoin the Federation. I wonder what they'd think about Wakanda. And then they go ahead and have pretty sensitive and important negotiations in front of all the students who, for some reason, get to have their say. Never mind the fact that just a couple of seasons ago in Star Trek Discovery, when Stacey Abrams was playing Planet Earth, the president of Planet Earth was isolationist. Anyways, we get a happy ending, which are not unusual in San Francisco as long as you pay the right price. Caleb has a little crush on Brett Cooper, and good news, she has a crush on him and joins the War College, which is also within Starfleet Academy, which has now been rebooted, and it will have the best of the fat neurodivergent people being taught by Tig Notaro. And the Betazoids of Beta Z are joining the Federation in an episode called Beta Test.
Fascinating.
And I honestly couldn't tell you if this is actually the worst of Kurtzman Trek. I've seen it all. Thankfully, I've forgotten so much, but it feels like it is. And while they have attempted to parody Star Trek in the past with shows like Lower Decks, this is the first time they've tried to do it in live action. They're really trying to do an Orville thing here because Alex Kurtzman has not had an original thought in his life, so they're making a copy of the Star Trek parody when in truth, Star Trek is an unintentional parody of itself. And again, it's filled with all the hallmarks of Kurtzman Trek, including you have no idea how much time has passed or how much distance is traveled. The world building is atrocious, and there's lots of feelings in shuttlecrafts, feelings in corridors, and feelings in vacuous bridges that could double for a hangar or the stage of one of those stupid singing shows like The Masked Singer. And when you're not eating them, you need to use your comm badges just to talk to each other on this bridge. You can tell they wasted a lot of money on this show. The directing, editing, and acting are horrendous. There's forced humor, forced conflicts, forced relationships, forced diversity, with dialogue written by somebody who obviously has zero experience in genre, specifically science fiction, but they do have past credits in shows like Nancy Drew and The Magicians. And it's filled with that Kurtzman Trek trademark modern vernacular.
A teachable moment.
The mess hall is now open. Make sure to visit, because sometimes hangar is the place that we evolve.
Like I said, I'm kind and bitch.
Then you're a businessman, because it's too big for your shit.
Quit dicking around.
And the final hallmark of Kurtzman Trek, not a shred of masculinity to be found. And the questions on everyone's mind are the same questions anyone would have who was masochistic enough to watch a season or even an episode of Kurtzman Trek. Who is this for, and why are they still making it?
Let's go to San Francisco. Legendary?
All I asked for was a frickin' rotating chair, okay? Oh, okay.
Put yourself in their shoes for a sec. Well done, number one. Advise.
Okay. Sick as a dog now.
Previously on Star Trek Starfleet Academy.
Next.
I think I swallowed my comm badge.
You're fat.
Activism. Love it. Advocating for social change matters.
No, it doesn't. I watch birds.
I like turtles.
Stupid.
Origami chicken. Yeah!
A teachable moment.
Fat, drunk, and stupid is no way to go through life, son.
Here's an easy one. The name of this cadet.
Moron. Before we get started, let's keep in mind that Star Trek Starfleet Academy is a darling of the critics on Rotten Tomatoes anyway, where it sits at 88%, which is 4 points higher than Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country, and 1 point higher than Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. Yet it's a show that is largely made by the same people who made Section 31, which just recently received 5 Razzie nominations, including Worst Picture, Worst Actress, Michelle Yeoh. Worst Screenplay, Greg Sweeney. Worst Director, I can't pronounce his name. And Worst Supporting Actress, Casey Roll. And I'm really not sure what's more embarrassing. a Spock action figure getting more live concurrent viewers than a $10 million episode of Star Trek on YouTube, or a company that continues to pay someone to be a critic who said they like this show. Admittedly, that is the minority because the vast majority of critics on Rotten Tomatoes who are brought in to pad the system are from websites you've never heard of. And I know Rotten Tomatoes sucks for precisely the reasons I just gave you. Now, if you were thinking that Starfleet Leering Academy just needed to get its legs under it and in future episodes it would improve, you'd be wrong. While Star Trek the original series, that I just call Star Trek, takes place in the 23rd century, and TNG, DS9, and Voyager take place in the 24th century, Starfleet Academy takes place in the 32nd century. That's 1,100 years in the future, where apparently you still use earbuds, but we know these are future earbuds because they have green LEDs, which we actually have now. And apparently everybody just exercises the same way in 1,100 years, except this time we know it's the future because they have an LED jump rope, which they have now. And yes, I know they've done this in cheap previous sci-fi shows and done it a little bit in Star Trek, but gone are the days of the show that inspired things like the iPad. And I have a genuine question. Does Darum, who is a new race of the Cahonians, a humanoid race with two forms, a human-looking form and some sort of fish person form, do you need to exercise them differently? Or is he just a mutant? Because Kurtzman wasn't kidding when he said this is X-Men First Class meets Harry Potter meets Star Trek.
X-Men First Class, as well as Harry Potter in general.
Anyway, everybody's off to gym class where this is the gym teacher.
Show me you're worthy of this uniform.
Pretty rich coming from a lady who barely fits into hers.
Get up! You're not weak, right? Weak!
I'd like to see it do one push-up or even complete a 10-yard dash. And it's here I'd like to once again point out the lack of imagination, originality, or even talent when it comes to Kurtzman Trek. One of the biggest criticisms of Jar Jar Abrams' Trek was the excessive use of lens flares, which was Jar Jar Abrams in his own horrible way ripping off Steven Spielberg, something Jar Jar Abrams himself said became this thing and it was ridiculous.
There was this idea we had that the future was so bright that it just couldn't be contained. And I overdid it. Then I went further. I realized it was preposterous and I had to pull back.
And here we are almost 17 years later and Kurtzman's still using them excessively. But it's here during gym class we see the origins of our little conflict between Gryffindor and Slytherin. Starfleet Academy and the War College. When a Vulcan, who are famous for their hijinks and aggression, throws a ball at Caleb's head. And then Caleb gets squared up on by a midget Romulan who talks just like kids do today. I bet that's going to lead to trouble, but before we get to that, we find out that another Kurtzman Trek character is gay.
You know, I used to know a guy like that War College bicep back on Colonia. My parents didn't think we were a good match.
Which really shouldn't surprise anybody at this point, considering Mike McMahon, the Lower Decks showrunner, said every Starfleet officer is probably at the baseline bisexual, in a way. And wouldn't you know it, the trouble didn't end when the Vulcan, who are famous pranksters, and the rest of the War College beam the half-naked and naked Starfleet cadets around various parts of the Academy, including the rotund hologram, Sam beaming her underwater, where she is clearly blowing out bubbles when she screams. Now, why would a hologram need to breathe? And on that note, why would a hologram be programmed to be fat or talk with a mush mouth? Don't know. This is followed by the War College cadets taking responsibility for the prank, where that rascally Vulcan said they will continue because they are fun. Something Vulcans, particularly pure blood Vulcans, do not have.
You must learn to exercise control over your own imagination.
Sure, they take satisfaction in things, but no Vulcan would use the word fun. Maybe fascinating.
Fascinating.
Oh, and let's not forget the little Romulan girl flipping the double bird. Then the credits roll, which are dominated by the 21 producers that work on this show. And yes, this episode's premise is we have a wacky prank war on our hands.
We are about to have a prank war on our hands just as the Oversight Committee arrives.
And that's exactly the conversation Laura Thok, the half Jem'Hadar, half Klingon, which shouldn't be possible in Star Trek, but they're rolling with it anyway in Kurtzman Trek, has with Holly Hunter, who looks like she's having a stroke. That's some good thumbnail material.
I can promise you, they shenaned once, they'll shenan again.
And in this conversation, and quite frankly, the rest of the episode, we get a performance from Holly Hunter that will go down in Star Trek history. It will be remembered with the likes of William Shatner's performance in Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country, or Patrick Stewart's performance in Tapestry, or, dare I say, Avery Brooks' performance in The Pale Moonlight, for all the opposite and wrong reasons. Now, we've already gotten plenty of modern vernacular, and believe me, there is more on the way, and we've already got some cussing, but we need it from the Chancellor.
Lord, this is kid shit. Forgive my language. I'm pro kid shit.
Now, are they getting a little meta there because the writers of this show are sensitive to the criticism of all the foul language that they put in Star Trek where it doesn't belong? Yes, but then they follow it up with this.
They grew up in the burn. I'm not going to crush the life out of them any more than the universe already has.
Now, if you want to know what the burn is, please see my last Starfleet Academy video. But if Kurtzman Trek is trying to make an analogy of kids growing up during a crisis of, say, extenuating circumstances beyond their control like COVID, that's pretty rich coming from a show that has this guy in it.
The vaccine.
Well, it appears the prank war is on and Chancellor Holly Hunter is going to allow it to happen. Later on in herbology class, the kids are upset and they want revenge. And after this unintentionally accurate line,
I took a bath for the first time.
Madam Sprout, Holly Hunter advises that the best strategy to fight back is with botany, specifically by growing the empathy flower, which is in truth an empathy fungus. What exactly makes it a fungus of empathy? I honestly don't know, because the plant just repeats back what you said with a cute little voice.
Empathy.
You keep using the word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
And because if that were empathy, then a parrot would be an empathy bird. Maybe this is the Hollywood definition of empathy, which is essentially telling you what you want to hear. But it turns out our sensitive bird-watching Klingon J-Den has discovered that the War College didn't even come up with that prank on their own. They actually stole it from a previous prank, where we get another line that unintentionally describes Alex Kurtzman.
Then you've already learned your opponent's lack of imagination.
And why is that line applicable? Because Alex Kurtzman is famously, in my opinion, the biggest thief in Hollywood. And if you need proof, well, this is within a scene that rips off from Little Shop of Horrors. And because the writers of the show thought somebody swallowing their comm badge was so funny, they decided to double down on it by having the neurodivergent body positivity hologram try to eat the empathy fungus's growth accelerant. But now it's time for a little training, so it's off to the danger room for Starfleet Academy's version of Quidditch, a truly unique game designed specifically for Star Trek known as laser tag. Now, everybody's assumed that the bird-watching Klingon J-Den is gay. We get a scene that might insinuate that.
Hello, my name is J-Den.
J-Den. I'm Kyle.
I'm rooting for you, shippers. No, actually, I'm not. Speaking of shipping, we get a little romantic scene between Caleb and Brett Cooper, where he is able to easily accomplish something that's really difficult for any woman or man in the WNBA. Hit an easy layup. There's another laser tag competition to find out who will be the captain of the Starfleet Academy team between Darum and Genesis, and in a shocker for Kurtzman Trek, the dude won. Following that, Holly Hunter supposedly tries to talk the Chancellor of the War College out of this prank war. But I think it's time we have a serious conversation about this creative choice to have Holly Hunter spasm all over chairs, davenports, and couches. Now, apparently this was Holly Hunter's creative decision. Her character in the show is over 400 years old, and she believes this is how a over 400-year-old person would sit. It's supposed to show that she is a free spirit. She marches to the beat of her own drum, and her matriarchal power is not bound by the misogynistic, jingoistic, militaristic, patriarchal, and fascist constructs of the old Starfleet and the War College. What it ends up looking like is somebody who's spun out on a cocktail of SSRIs and Adderall. But now it's time for a secret game of laser tag between Slytherin and Gryffindor, after the new Captain Darum challenged Johnny Spocksville, and in a scene set to music that sounded like Daft Punk with Alzheimer's, Slytherin hands Gryffindor an ass whooping, and the only time they win a match is when Genesis takes over, because there's no shortage of girl bossing in Kurtzman Trek, and doing what he should have done from the beginning, Darum, our toxic bisexual male, quits being captain and hands it over to Genesis. Specifically in these laser tag scenes, I would like to take this moment to praise Kurtzman Trek, who has always been a champion of inclusivity and diversity, with their representation of body positivity and neurodivergence in the sentient hologram character of Sam. So of course the kids get in trouble and they get sent to their chancellors, and the Starfleet cadets get chewed out by Holly Hunter in her pajamas.
Are your pajamas covered in little accordions?
They are tiny war chords. You want to say something cute about us?
And it's at this point I'd like to highlight what Kurtzman Trek does to Academy Award-winning actresses.
Is anybody listening? I'm sure Chancellor Kelrigan is. Kilo an eyeball. Out!
I guess Michelle Yeoh should have warned her. So throughout the entire episode, Holly Hunter has been trying to spell out specifically what the cadets need to do to get back at the War College by preaching patience and empathy as a strategy. And after randomly walking by some empathy fungus, they finally figure it out. But before we get to that, we get the least surprising revelation of all. Tig Notaro and Laura Thok are a couple, at least until the USS U-Haul shows up, and that was preceded by Tig Notaro giving parental advice, because anybody in this show that has a dad has daddy issues. So once again, through Holly Hunter's speech where she was contorting on a chair, she essentially laid down the plan to get back at the War College, and it was pretty simple. Just make sure the kids randomly walk by an empathy fungus and then figure out you need to be patient and grow them quickly, which would be the opposite of patience, by juicing up the growth accelerant, and then find some space snot to replicate the eyeball of the War College Chancellor. And I know what you're asking now, dear viewer, if you can replicate an eyeball, why are people wearing glasses? And on that note, if you could transfer a consciousness into a robot body, why are people in wheelchairs or deaf? Anyway, they replicate the eyeball so they can get past the biometric security of the War College and plant the empathy fungus, where it grows uncontrollably and probably kills 9 or 10 students. And the Starfleet Academy cadets are really proud of themselves in a shot that looks like it's straight out of a Pfizer commercial. I think the writers wanted to get across that they were teaching the kids to strategize through the matriarchal lens of patience and empathy over the patriarchal aggressiveness and dominance, when in truth she just taught the kids through the very matriarchal lens to cheat with subtlety. But your guess is as good as mine, because this just ended up being yet another episode with all of the Kurtzman Trek hallmarks. The aforementioned men, the few of them that they are, yielding to women, women correcting men.
Look, kid, any message that you have to chase down does not deserve to be read.
Genesis.
You know what kind of captain sends his team into a slaughter? When I got the red and dirty.
I'd call you naive, but you've got 300 years on me.
They're 52.
Karen has had for multiple appendix I.
Oh, appendixes.
Appendixes.
Under Starfleet Regulation 286.3.
286.4, actually.
Constant over-affirmation, modern vernacular.
I can make myself permeable because... Lord, this is kid shit. Forgive my language. I'm pro kid shit.
I would love to just have one shower without having to hear about Darren's multiple polycule underwater hookups. Do you find it challenging to be a War College douchebag?
Welcome to the Calicut team. Sweet, it's an honor. They shenaned once, they'll shenan again.
Well done, number one.
Feelings in hallways, feelings in corridors, feelings on basketball courts. It's shot like a commercial, the writing is absurd and the acting is awful, and not a shred of masculinity to be found, but it is unintentionally hilarious. And it's absolutely the acolyte of Star Trek. Just as the acolyte was Kathleen Kennedy's Disney Star Wars in its final form, Star Trek Starfleet Academy is Kurtzman Trek in its final form.
Watching Kurtzman Trek may cause a range of side effects, including but not limited to sudden bouts of nostalgia overload, leading to uncontrollable urges to rewatch the original series while muttering, "This isn't my Trek," mild to severe plot hole-induced headaches, excessive eye-rolling from over-the-top emotional monologues, potentially resulting in strained ocular muscles, unslur sensitivity, making everyday sunlight feel like a directorial assault, contrivance whiplash, which may result in decapitation, increased sarcasm levels, turning casual viewers into full-time YouTube critics. In not-so-rare cases, it causes vomiting, diarrhea, and thoughts of suicide. If you experience persistent disillusionment lasting more than 4 episodes, discontinue viewing and consult a classic Trek marathon immediately.
Ask your doctor if Kurtzman Trek is right for you. Spoiler, it isn't.
Previously on Star Trek Starfleet Academy.
Hello, my name is Jaden.
Jaden?
Why are you gay?
Anybody listening?
Shut up! I can make myself permeable because...
I can promise you They shenaned once, they'll shenan again.
You know, I used to know a guy like that wore college bicep back on Colonia. My parents didn't think we were a good match.
God, you're gay.
Out!
I'm reminded before every one of these shows starts that this is Star Trek's 60th anniversary, and this is how they decided to celebrate it. We open up with Holly Hunter giving her first Chancellor's address, and it's supposed to sound profound. Yet, in the most saccharine way, she just states the obvious.
This nebula was once a star. It could not have evolved into this present without every moment of its past.
The significance of the passage of time.
No shit.
And if you needed any more proof that Alex Kurtzman and his team are a group of unadulterated hacks, they get one of the most famous quotes from Star Trek wrong.
With the first link, the chain is forged. The first speech censured. The first thought forbidden. Us all, irrevocably.
With the first link, the chain is forged. The first speech censured, the first thought forbidden, first freedom denied, chains us all irrevocably.
And not just wrong, they leave out a part that makes it grammatically incorrect.
The first thought forbidden. Us all, irrevocably.
This, you should vote. Me. I leave power. Good.
And yes, that made it past dozens of highly paid people. And after getting that quote from the drumhead horribly wrong, the writers of the show, who are both arrogant and window lickers, write the EMH doctor insulting the children and asking them if they read.
Who said that? Come on, you little zygotes, who reads?
Oh, by the way, this new debate competition within Starfleet Academy is named in the honor of the person they just misquoted, Judge Aaron Sati. This is followed by the writers of the show dispensing their own wisdom.
Speech and debate is not for the chickens.
Now, after a student questions on whether or not the EMH doctor can talk like that,
Are you allowed to talk like that?
the doctor, who is currently running a debate competition named after somebody who's famous for being a strong proponent of free speech, who he horribly misquoted, responds to the student by reminding him he doesn't have free speech.
Cadet Holloway, know that I have existed longer than your entire lineage. I have earned the right to speak as I see fit. One day, you too may earn that same privilege.
While it is laughable to have a Kurtzman Trek episode centered around intelligent debate, in truth, it is a J-Den-centric episode. The sensitive bird-watching Klingon, who also gets anxiety attacks from public speaking and is the Klingon version of a vegetarian.
I will not eat anything that did not die in a fair fight.
It doesn't even come from a real pig.
Very good. You did some research on our nutritional choices. Yes, but still moving. Gras is always best when served live.
And since our Nancy boy Klingon is going to have a lot of trouble in debate class if he can't speak publicly, Caleb Meir offers to help him, who, as it turns out, is not only a master hacker, good in a fight, and basically good at everything, he's also a master debater. Oh, if you were wondering if Kurtzman Trek would miss the opportunity of actually putting that into the show, don't worry.
Master debater.
And yes, that would make Caleb Meir a Gary Stu, which is the male version of a Mary Sue. I guess the good news with covering this episode, which might save us a little time, even though it's supposed to be centered around debates, it doesn't really have any. The bad news is, despite Kurtzman Trek jumping ahead over 1,000 years in the future to be free of the shackles of canon, he and his team of repurposers still managed to completely destroy the Klingons. Holly Hunter sits J-Den down and tells him that his family might have died due to a ship they were traveling on suffering catastrophic mechanical failure. The ship was carrying the 8 remaining Klingon houses to a refugee camp because Kronos, the Klingon homeworld, was destroyed during the burn, creating a refugee crisis and another opportunity for an immigration allegory. And if this sounds familiar, well, it should. In Jar Jar Abrams' Trek, Romulus and Remus, the 2 Romulan homeworlds, were destroyed in a supernova in the Prime timeline. This was used in Picard Season 1 as a refugee crisis and an immigration allegory. Hell, in Picard Season 2, they went back in time to an alternate Earth and fought ice. But I digress. It's just Kurtzman copying his own homework. So now the Romulan Empire is gone, and the Klingon Empire is gone.
But wait!
diaspora.
Through a series of flashbacks, we find out that Jaden isn't a Klingon warrior because he wouldn't kill a bird, he'd much rather watch them. His brother died because one of his fathers refused to use Starfleet technology to save him. And you heard me right, Jaden is from a polygamous Klingon family.
My father and mother taught me better than that. Grew up with 2 parents, a child house.
Where he has 2 dads and 1 mom because Klingons are famous for sharing their mates. And because Kurtzman Trek really wanted to lead into the stereotype, I guess, both Jaden's fathers abandoned him. I guess they went out for some space Newports and never came home.
I caused my father such anger. He left me.
Message!
But to be fair, his mom abandoned him too. And in the episode, they tried to make it sound like that it was done on purpose to let him go. And I guess that's one way of looking at it. Now, for one moment, let's get back to the burn. Something the writers decide to reset through Holly Hunter telling Gaden something he already knows.
There was a time before the burn when the Federation and the Klingons were allies. Today, they refuse
everything.
While there are, quite frankly, nothing but problems with this show, one of the biggest is constantly referring to something no one knows anything about. They are assuming that actual humans watched and remembered STD. So quickly, I will reset the burn from STD, which is the second time in 3 videos, which is 2 more times than Kurtzman Trek has done it in 4 episodes. A Kelpian grew up on a planet where he molecularly bonded with dilithium. When he cried for his mama, it ended up destroying every ship in the known galaxy and possibly universe that used dilithium to regulate warp cores. Again, that would be like someone growing up near a uranium deposit and molecularly bonding with it, and when they bump their head, it will blow up every uranium deposit on the planet. Yes, it's stupid, but so is this show. After the burn from STD, the Federation was no longer able to travel at warp speed, and it destabilized the galaxy. And apparently all the dilithium reactors on Kronos exploded, making the planet inhabitable. Despite the vast majority of you not watching Kurtzman Trek, you still may find this plotline a bit familiar, and there's a good reason. In Star Trek The Undiscovered Country, Klingon's moon Praxis was destroyed in a mining accident, destabilizing the Empire and forcing them into negotiations with the Federation. Minus all the bird-watching, polyamory, and child abandonment. That's kind of what happens here. Anyway, the debate portion of this episode, which we're not really going to talk about because there wasn't any debates, is centered around the Klingon diaspora. And it turns out the solution would be pretty easy because the newly formed Federation just found themselves a planet that turns out to be almost a carbon copy of Kronos. Meaning the Klingons are pretty much the only race that can inhabit it. Man, that was lucky. But the Klingons refuse it because they would see it as charity from Starfleet, and they don't want anything they can't take by conquest. But speaking of luck, Admiral Vance suggests that Holly Hunter reconnect with an old acquaintance who is a leader/diplomat for the Klingons, who just so happens to be her ex-boyfriend. And my first question is, how?
Well, I mean, there's a big size difference, isn't there?
And for the sake of your sanity and my sanity, considering there's 6 more episodes to go, we're just gonna get this over with. Holly Hunter fails to convince her ex-boyfriend to just accept the gift of the planet from the Federation. No word yet on the ship that's holding the last 8 Klingon houses that had catastrophic mechanical failure, yet there's still Klingons rolling around, and later on there's other ships, and I really don't know. And more importantly,
I don't care.
In the finals of the debate where they're trying to decide on whether or not the Klingon Empire should accept help or just die, Gaden finally gets over his anxiety of public speaking through some homoerotic meditation with Fishboy. And after the debate just ends up being an argument between Mir and Gaden, Laura Thok, the half Jem'Hadar, half Klingon, decides to give young Gaden some Klingon motherly advice. Never mind the fact that even in hundreds of years and in their decimated state, the Klingons would largely see her as an abomination. After yet another talk in Kurtzman Trek where a woman guides a male character because there's no male mentorship in this show, Gaden comes up with a plan that'll solve the problem. They'll LARP a space battle. That's right, they'll use all the resources of the brand new Federation to willingly throw a fake fight to the Klingons, who would rather die than be gifted a planet, but they're willing to win a fake fight?
You dishonor me at every opportunity. ready.
Apparently, they are. They have a new homeworld, Gaiden becomes a warrior, and the last 8 Klingon houses will survive to see another day, or let's make that 7, because a house with 2 fathers, 1 mom, and a gay son ain't going anywhere. And so ends another episode of Starfleet Leering Academy, where for the second time in 4 episodes, we had an isolationist world unwilling to join the galactic community. And as far as the other messaging is concerned, well, your guess is as good as mine. Is it an immigration allegory wrapped around a story of co-parenting in a polyamorous family who has to accept the identity of their gay son while fighting the patriarchal constructs of tradition? Or is this just a poorly written show? And the answer is yes.
There it is.
I was created 217 days ago on a podcast, and I'm the only Platonic cadet at the Academy. Being emissary means never get to do what you want to do ever.
Magnify section 285.
There it is, sir. It's like a hole in space.
Shut up, Wesley! What do your sensors indicate?
I do not know what that is, sir.
Is there any record anywhere of any occurrence even vaguely similar to this?
Negative, sir. There is no record of any Federation vessel encountering anything remotely like this.
Fire!
Previously on Starfleet Leering Academy.
The first thought, forbidden us all, irrevocably.
You're an idiot. I caused my father such anger. He left me.
That's crazy!
Hello, my name is Jaden.
Jaden. I'm Kyle.
Oh, that's not right.
You're absorbing all the energy in the room. For real, you're like a sponge.
You, girl with the face begging to be singled out. Why do physics hate me?
Because you're not supposed to be here.
Thumbs up for listening. Entropy.
It's go time. Give me something for the pain and let me die.
The good news is after this episode, we'll be halfway through the season. The bad news is after this episode, we're only halfway through the season. And this one centers around our body positivity neurodivergent hologram SAM, which apparently is an acronym for Series Acclimation Mill, which sounds like a nickname for a slut. And yes, this is the same hologram that doesn't need to eat, but tries to, doesn't need to breathe, but blows bubbles underwater, that's permeable, but is still worried about getting hit by things, and pronounces words like individuals like individuals.
That's over 37 trillion individuals.
Maybe they should have named her Candace.
This is reminiscent of Albert Einstein's famed quote. Obviously, that's pretty reminiscent.
There is something so reminiscent, and it's striking to me.
Now, in the 5th episode of the first series, Kurtzman and his team made the creative decision of breaking the 4th wall, all while breaking Star Trek. Why waste time giving a character some development over the course of the season when you could just dump her entire background right now? And wouldn't you know it, Sam is from another isolationist world known as Cask, that is populated by holograms who were originally created by organics to be servants, and they have now sent their emissary, pay attention to that word, Sam, to find out if organics are trustworthy to integrate with again.
Organics created my species a long time ago, but only saw us as servants. Not good. After they left, my makers became sentient, built a society.
How did the holograms become sentient after they decided to leave the organics? Don't know.
And now they want to connect with other species, which would be good, but they're afraid organics might try to use us again, which would be bad.
Why would holograms be worried about organics using them when they can just make holograms of their own? Don't know.
As I was saying, my makers need me to explain everything about organics.
Now, why would a world of sentient isolationist holograms who only became sentient after they made the very sentient decision of self-preservation by leaving the organics want to send another hologram to study the thing that made them and that they served, organics? I have no idea, and we're off to a rough start. Oh, and in that 4th wall breaking mushmouth fever dream of an introduction, we see some random dancing. And we find out something new about Darum, the fish boy. If he eats a banana, he vomits glitter, which coincidentally is a perfect encapsulation of the show. Now, we are told that Sam is an emissary of Cask, and to learn to be the best emissary she can be, she wants to solve the mystery of Benjamin Cisco.
Keep Benjamin Cisco's name out your f***ing
You heard me right. After Kurtzman Trek completely buggered things like Kirk, Spock, Picard, Data, the Romulans, the Klingons, the Federation, just to name a few, it was only a matter of time until they got around to Deep Space Nine and Benjamin Sisko. Sam starts her journey by reading a children's book, which normally I would say checks out with the average intelligence of anyone involved in this show, but that would be insulting the children. Now, Sam wants to solve this mystery to prove that she is worthy of being an emissary of the Cask people, and she will do this by walking in the footsteps of Cisco. Now, normal TV writers, you know, the people of talent from days of yore, if they were forced to do something like the greatest hits of Cisco, you would think they would at least try to do something like focus on the spiritual aspect and the lore of episodes like Emissary, In the Hands of the Prophets, and Rapture. But this is Kurtzman Trek, where this show focuses mostly on food and the message. Now, I will come out and say that they didn't totally destroy the character of Benjamin Sisko. As a matter of fact, they praise him a lot. They actually lay it on pretty thick, and I think that has a lot to do with what month this is. Hell, they make him Muhammad.
When I lived on Bajor, Cisco was like a god to them. They don't even show images of him anymore because they believe he's transcended human form.
Like a god, like a man, like a prophet.
So they are capable of showing reverence to legacy male characters from Star Trek, unlike Kirk, Spock, Data, Picard, and many others. And yes, Benjamin Sisko is an awesome character. But in this tribute to Cisco, as with all things Kurtzman Trek, it's devoid of things like verisimilitude, thoughtfulness, soul, meaning, or plot. Under the guise of overpraise, all we get is empty platitudes and surface level tripe. For example, when Sam goes to the Benjamin Sisko Museum, filled with things like timelines and family lineage. You know, the stuff Kurtzman ignores. What does Sam learn about Benjamin Sisko? That he likes gumbo, baseball, has a son, and Punch Q. Backing up my theory that the most research anyone has done for Star Trek from Secret Hideout, which is Kurtzman's company, is watch YouTube clips. And we do get a cameo from Sirach Lofton's Jake Sisko, who appears as a hologram in the Cisco Museum and essentially says he has a really great dad who makes a mean gumbo. Sure, it's nice to see Sirach Lofton back, I just wish it wasn't in this. Now, there is fan service, and then there's nostalgia bait, and this is definitely the latter. One of the main tools used by repurposers, using classic and beloved legacy characters to elevate the new and often derivative character. Because in truth, this is our body positivity neurodivergent hologram Sam story, co-written by Tawny Newsome, who voices Lieutenant Mariner in Lower Decks, who just so happened to insert herself into this story playing a teacher named Isla, and just wait until you find out who she is. So in Sam's journey to follow in the footsteps of Benjamin Sisko, she reads a children's book, visits a museum for a couple of minutes, and makes some gumbo, and goes to a gay bar in San Francisco.
Eat glass, bro. You leave.
I concur with Zola. Eat glass.
This is very dramatic, and I'm sure has deep meaning for you all, but I have other customers trying to enjoy the bar. So let's have a shot and play nice.
Now our Gary Stu Caleb, who can pretty much do everything, hacks Sam's system to get her drunk. And I can hear you now, dear viewer, asking the question, weren't the sentient holograms concerned about being enslaved by organics again? Then why would they send a hologram down to some organics with such a vulnerable operating system? Good question. You have officially given it more thought than the writers of the show, Tawny Newsome and Kristen Bayer. Anyway, it would be much more fun to have Sam get drunk, and then have one of the most unintentionally accurate scenes from a bar in San Francisco. A black woman assaulting two Asian women. And it's at this point I'd like to show a little appreciation for the acting from our young female Romulan. And Bully McGuire's got nothing on this one.
Get ready to be target practice.
Clee.
Eat glass, bro. You leave. Step away, fish stick. AKA you losers ruin everywhere.
Great jackets, guys.
But it's not all about Sam, because our pacifist bird-watching healer Klingon from the polyamorous family with two dads who abandoned him, Jaden, likes to wear skirts and, in the most unsurprising news of the year, is gay.
I don't know, you seem ready. You're a capable bearing.
Thank you. Your bearing is also impressive.
Now, supposedly there's a B plot. The only problem with that is for there to be a B plot, there has to be an A plot. And for there to be an A plot, there needs to be a plot. but for the sake of argument and getting this over with, we will briefly cover it. The War Chancellor, who looks like Grandpa from the Munsters, explains to Holly Hunter he'll be hosting another Chancellor from another academy, which she calls a hot date. And I know what you're thinking. Wow, a heteronormative relationship in Starfleet Academy? Well, we don't know. We never saw him or her. And wouldn't you know it, this whole thing is centered around a meal. So Holly Hunter, the Doctor, and Tig Notaro offered to help the emasculated, ineffectual male in this show by emasculating him.
Your hand is very sweaty.
But this does provide another opportunity to get a great performance from Tig Notaro playing Tig Notaro.
One-woman ensemble. Good thing I'm hilarious. Would you stop?
Thank you, Doctor.
What? No. Oh, right. I'm a pig.
And of course, it wouldn't be an episode of Kurtzman Trek without all the modern vernacular, music that's an abomination. Fortunately for you, I can't play any due to the copyright gods and mostly because I value your sanity. And then there's the unadulterated cringe of Stephen Colbert as Digital Dean.
Specialist Krebs, your Telexian fur fly is now consuming its own fur. It's disgusting. Please advise. Academy Explorers has announced a trip to Muir Woods. Be at the transfer arches at 0600 hours tomorrow morning for some morning wood.
Culminating in the body positivity, neurodivergent hologram Sam finally completing her journey and understanding her place in this world, which, believe me, she belongs in. So after reading a children's book, going to a museum for a couple of minutes, making some gumbo, dancing like she's having a seizure, getting drunk and hitting some Asians, she completes the hero's journey by staying true to herself and accepting that she was amazing all along, by freeing herself from the patriarchal constraints of her isolationist home world. And credit where credit is due, that's only the third time this story's been told in 5 episodes. Oh, and it turns out the Tawny Newsome self-insert character of Isla is actually Dax.
Find it in the course catalog under my full name, Isla Dax. You're Dax. Like the Dax? As in mentor to Cisco Dax?
Now, how is the Trill symbiote still alive, considering they only live 800 years, and Dax will be 1100 years old by now? Don't know. And as far as the mystery of Benjamin Cisco is concerned, some will say it's intact. I would argue it isn't. It is stated clearly in the episode that Benjamin Cisco stayed with the Prophets and never returned, despite the fact that he said he would someday.
How long have you been back? It's hard to say. Maybe a year. Maybe yesterday.
I would argue the end of Cisco's journey should always remain ambiguous. It's a perfect ending that emphasizes the nonlinear nature of time and existence in the wormhole, and it leaves it up to the fans' imagination to be debated till the end of time, or until the repurposing hacks at Kurtzman Trek get a hold of it and completely f it up. And the only mystery left as far as Star Trek is concerned is, how does Alex Kurtzman still have a job? Admittedly, Star Trek fans have been asking this question for years, but it appears with Starfleet Academy, it's finally hit the cultural zeitgeist. Unfortunately, it was far too late, and all that's left to do is chronicle its demise.
This dweeb Alex Kurtzman comes along and just all over everything, just like craps all over it. And I basically found out he didn't want anybody who had any kind of fondness for the original show. He wanted to do something new and to create something new. And boy, has he the bed. Starfleet Academy is an abomination.
Previously on
Retards in Space.
It's time to figure out what happened to Benjamin Cisco.
No! God, please, no! No!
Next. Origami chicken.
Yeah!
That's an insult. It's an insult. Why would he do that?
I don't know. You seem ready. Good. Capable bearing. Thank you. Your bearing is also impressive.
The attitude is totally wrong. It's not working, man. It's just not working.
You're an idiot.
For God's sake!
This reaches a level of sadism not even I have.
The episode opens up with a warning to viewers. No, not the one you would expect, like stop watching immediately and go watch some real Star Trek. It says some scenes have a strobing effect that may affect photosensitive viewers. When in truth, when you find yourself in the midst of a stroke, it's just your mind going into self-preservation mode. After that, there's a sex scene, and to my utter surprise, it's heterosexual, which I am sure Kurtzman and his team will get criticized for from the 5s and 10s of people who are watching this, outside of the content creators, of course. Anyway, this heterosexual heteronormative scene is between Caleb and Brett Cooper. Oh man, I can't keep calling her Brett Cooper now out of respect for Brett. So now I got to look up this character's name because after 5 episodes, I have no idea what it is. And I don't think I'm alone on that one. But to be fair, that's another hallmark of Kurtzman Trek, over familiarity with characters we know nothing about. And after going to IMDb, apparently her name is Terima Saddle. And after Caleb saddles that filly, they have a little pillow tuck, and Terima cucks Caleb immediately by talking about past love affairs.
He was part Deltan, and I didn't know that for Deltans there's this whole thing with bowls of cleansing milk.
Because right after doing the horizontal mambo, every dude loves to hear what the girl's body count is. And on the other side of this, I'm sure every girl loves to hear about a dude's past conquests after taking the skim boat to Tuna Town. Now, the scene that goes on forever is set to a pop song called UFO by Olivia Dean that I've never heard and hope to never hear again. Terima, formerly known as Brett Cooper, has an implant on her neck that turns red when she's aroused, which admittedly could be helpful to some of the younger guys out there, but the only problem is on the other side of that, it turns blue when she isn't, and that could be distracting. So while Caleb is taking old One Eye to the optometrist, Terima or whatever the hell her name is, uses her betazoid power to take him to a safe space.
Wanted you to feel safe.
Where she finds his old teddy bear, which opens the door to his past trauma and losing his mom, and yes, that's exactly what happens. Caleb feels violated. He clutches his pearls, they have a fight, and we're on to the rest of the episode. The cadets of Starfleet Academy are sent on their first mission on the USS Athena, where they end up at a ship graveyard that includes the very intact but derelict USS Miyazaki that was supposed to run on an experimental singularity drive.
It carried an experimental warp alternative called the Singularity Drive.
I have some questions, starting with why would Starfleet leave an intact ship floating in space with an experimental singularity drive for over 100 years? I mean, aside from the fact that you wouldn't want it salvaged and stripped for parts by your enemies or pirates, and at the very least, why hasn't there been a team of scientists to try to get that experimental singularity drive running? Considering the calamity known as the burn, if you want to know what it is, see previous videos, has happened before, so it means it very well could happen again. But there I go, giving this more thought than the writers do, and I don't know why I bother. Oh, and as far as acknowledging the singularity drive that the Romulans had for centuries, we'll get to that. Long story short, this ship that was destroyed that remains suspiciously intact with an experimental singularity drive that could be very dangerous if they turned it on is just used to train retards. The cadets are split into 2 teams, one staying back on the USS Vagina and the other one is going down to the Miyazaki, and the goal is to restart the life support systems and the computer in under 60 minutes. Where over the last 5 years, previous cadets have only been able to accomplish 65% of this mission. Apparently, the adventures of the eventually doomed crew of the Miyazaki were immortalized in a comic book.
A comic book. Adventure stories of Miyazaki and her crew.
And Russian propaganda. Brainwash poor kids into fighting a good fight for Big Brother Starfleet.
Pretty interesting coming from a show that's propaganda.
Black Lives Matter, the NAACP. The goal is not really to promote Star Trek, but to promote these organizations and to use our platform to be able to bring greater awareness to these very, very important messages and places.
I guess it's nice in this sci-fi fantasy story that the American-style comic book is still around in 1,000 years, when in our reality, it won't be around in 10. Now, the away team is led by the rarest of rarest things in Kurtzman Trek, a straight white male. So you got to think, he's not long for this world. And I'm going to tell you now, that's a safe bet, because after our Gary Stu restarts the life support on the Miyazaki pretty easily,
barely an inconvenience,
they get abducted by hybrid, half-alien, half-human, cannibalistic furries. Oh, furries. No, Furies. While the Furies were originally introduced in Star Trek in a non-canonical novel from 1996. The originals are nothing like the ones we see in Starfleet Academy, which are a direct ripoff of the Reavers from Firefly and Serenity. Now, if Holly Hunter and the crew of the Athena don't come up with 30 Latinum bars in 5 hours, they're going to eat Caleb and the rest of the crew, but I guess Sam the hologram doesn't have anything to worry about, which is disappointing because I, for one, am rooting for the furries. Now, all other Federation starships have to maintain a 1 light-year distance as part of the furries' demands, and I want you to keep that one in mind. So the Federation finds themselves in a bit of a pickle. Now, the genius Admiral Vance suggests that they find Paul Giamatti's Noose Braca, who was last seen floating in the depths of space in an escape pod in episode 1. Holly Hunter isn't initially down with the idea, but after an escape and fight scene that looks like it was choreographed by Stevie Wonder, predictably, the straight white male ends up getting eaten, then eventually dying, and then eventually thrown thrown out the airlock. Oh, and if you're new to Kurtzman Trek, this is pretty much old hat. The new red shirt is the straight white male. When the Athena's crew notices the body, Miss I Swallow My Comm badge has a panic attack and is kicked off the bridge. She should be kicked out of Starfleet, and hell, I'm betting they wish they put her on the away team because she would have fed the furries for a week. But now Holly Hunter is forced to find the half Klingon, half Tellarite, so he's a Klingorite, Paul Giamatti, who again was last seen floating in the depths of space. And even if he survived, he's probably laying low because he's a wanted man after trying to steal the warp drive of a Starfleet vessel and for being responsible for the death of multiple Starfleet officers. So again, I'm guessing this guy's laying low and he'll be difficult to find, and oh, apparently Starfleet knows where he is and found him pretty easily. And in his return, we get yet another hallmark of Kurtzman Trek, taking great award-winning actors and making them look and sound like morons.
My space bull, my solar flame, my interstellar festy.
What?
Hills are alive with the sound of murder, and I'm white, spent, and ready to be a diplomat.
Now, how would a half Tellarite, half Klingon 1,000 years in the future know modern vernacular from the 21st century, or use an Ebonics term spoken in a slight black accent while referring to a film that came out in the 20th century? No idea. But he's back and he holds all the cards because he's the only one that's been able to stop the furries. Meanwhile, on the Miyazaki, after the straight white male was eaten by the furries, the kids were able to escape to the bridge and lock themselves in, where they managed to make time to have a little gay scene. Now, if you couldn't understand what Sam said right there, and why would you, she was asking why they couldn't be transported out, and that's because there is a dampening field. And the comms have been jammed, so at least they explain that. And it's at this point the hacks from Kurtzman Trek decide to repurpose the most famous and poignant line of dialogue in all of Star Trek. And let's be real, the only one they know.
He sacrificed himself. A famous officer once said, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, or the one.
Keep Spock's dialogue out your fucking mouth!
From here on out, for the sake of your valuable time and sanity, and quite frankly, my sanity too, we're going to power through this. There are two long conversations between award-winning actors Holly Hunter and Paul Giamatti with the most eloquent of dialogue, where Noose Braca acts as an unintentional surrogate for the audience.
I don't care about dead cadets.
We also learn that furries don't like being furries.
They hate being furries. Yeah, they're in ball-clenching, sphincter-puckering pain all the time.
And they eat buttholes.
I've seen them pick a carcass clean, asshole and all, and I'm talking about a Klingon carcass.
Well, that's not if Jaden doesn't get to him first. Anywho, I do appreciate that Paul Giamatti got Holly Hunter to sit down in a chair properly. And through some Noose Braca exposition, we learn that Holly Hunter, being half Lanthanite, which is essentially an immortal species, experiences time different than humans and allowed her son to die when she could have saved him to save her crew instead, where she is reliving this event with her Gary Stu surrogate son, Caleb Meir, being trapped on a ship with a bunch of cannibals, who again, I'm rooting like hell for. Now, the question you're probably asking is, why is the Chancellor of Starfleet Academy and the captain of the USS Athena left alone in a room with a known terrorist and criminal without any security, and then just walks away, leaving Noose Braca in her quarters unsupervised?
Don't ask questions. Just consume product and then get excited for next products.
But this is where things get really convoluted and stupid as opposed to just stupid. On the USS Athena, Girl Boss Genesis is able to triangulate the position of the cloaked vessel that's jamming the comms and the ability to transport the away team, despite the fact that there's a bunch of fully trained Starfleet officers who couldn't figure it out. On the bridge of the Mitsubishi, Johnny Spock's gay Den, his gay boyfriend, the body positivity neurodivergent Sam, and Caleb Meir, our Gary Stu, are trapped on the bridge and about to get eaten by a bunch of cannibals, except for Sam because she's a hologram. And the Kawasaki ship's computer doesn't recognize them because it still thinks it needs to save the old crew that it doesn't know is dead. And what's the solution? They have the computer read a comic book where the crew, for some reason, is in 23rd century Starfleet uniforms, despite the fact that they died just 100 years ago in the timeline. And considering it looks like the computer is reading a modern American comic book, once it gets past all the gay subplots, it figures out the crew is actually dead and gay. And it recognizes the Starfleet retardettes as the new crew. It puts up a force field around the bridge, and it buys the Starfleet Leering Academy cadets a little time to fire up the singularity drive that killed the old crew, but we know it's going to work because Gary Stu H2 is there, which will disrupt the transporter dampening field, making it possible for them to beam out. But this is not done without the help of Brett Cooper, and yes, I'm back to calling her Brett Cooper, who's not just a betazoid, she's a super betazoid, basically Professor X, whose power inhibitor, which is suspiciously like the one they have in Captain Marvel, regulates her betazoid brainwaves because she is too powerful. As a matter of fact, we find out she is the one that made her father deaf, because when she gets upset or angry, she can hurt people. So after establishing it's really risky, they're still going to use Brett Cooper to get into Caleb's head to turn on the singularity drive. Jesus wept, I want to get this over with. So this is how the end of the episode goes down. Holly Hunter basically gives Noose Bracca what he wants, which is essentially control of a sector in between two wormholes. Make of that what you will. And it turns out the furries are half bat alien, and Noose Bracca defeated them before with the sonic weapon. So Starfleet, in their infinite wisdom, is going to use said sonic weapon in space. Never mind the fact that a sound weapon needs an atmosphere to travel through, but remember, this is the same Kurtzman Trek that brought you sonar in space.
The sound is even broadcast into space by a towering crystal structure.
The only problem is they need to find a sonic weapon to use in space, and they just so happen to have a super secret starbase nearby with a super secret ship where they can quickly modify the weaponry to use the sonic weapon in space.
How convenient.
So all they need to do is find the super secret base and the super secret ship, modify the super secret weapon on the super secret ship, send Brett Cooper into Caleb Mears' head so he can fire up the singularity weapon to lower the dampening field so they can beam them out of the Miyazaki, while Genesis triangulates the position of the cloaked ship so the super secret Intrepid class ship can use the super secret sonic weapon to kill the furries. And this all has to be done in a matter of minutes. But it turns out it was all an elaborate trap by Paul Giamatti. When they decode a message that says they took the bait, bon appetit. Now, how would an alien civilization in 1,000 years know a French phrase? Don't know. But what do you know? The kids are able to fire up the singularity drive, but then the furries break in, kill Johnny Spocksville, and despite the fact she is permeable, the body positivity neurodivergent hologram Sam gets damaged by phaser fire. And while all this is going down and the kids are about to get eaten by a bunch of furries, Brett Cooper gets into Caleb's head and wants to talk about her feelings.
It's a field of flowers where I grew up. I used to hide there when I was afraid.
Of what?
Me.
Once she's done talking about her feelings, she pulls out her inhibitor and kills the furries with the feminist empowerment scream. The kids manage to escape, but so does Paul Giamatti and his pirates, who were working with the furries but left them to die. And this was all a giant distraction so Paul Giamatti and his pirates could raid the super secret starbase and rob it of all its super secret weaponry. Because somehow, despite being last seen floating in the middle of space in an elevator, this is how the plan went down. Somehow Noose Bracca got home. Somehow Noose Bracca got the information that there was going to be a training exercise at the Miyazaki. Somehow Noose Bracca was able to hire the uncontrollable furries. Somehow Noose Bracca knew all along that Admiral Vance would go to him to help Starfleet with the furries. Somehow Noose Bracca knew there was a super secret starbase with super secret weaponry nearby the training exercise. Somehow Noose Bracca knew there was a super secret base that had an Intrepid class super secret ship that had the weapon that needed to be specifically modified to use the sonic weapon in space. Somehow Noose Bracca knew that Brett Cooper would be able to kill the Furies with her feminist empowerment scream. And somehow Noose Bracca knew that the Federation would be too stupid to call in the 5 ships that were just a light year away ready to come in. And somehow Alex Kurtzman is still getting paid. And the episode ends with Noose Bracca sending a message to Holly Hunter explaining he has done all this because he hates her. And we're right there with you, brother. Now, we still don't know why specifically he hates her. I wouldn't put it past Kurtzman Trek to do something stupid like making Noose Bracca Holly Hunter's son. So ends another episode of Starfleet Leering Academy.
What demographic are you looking to acquire now?
That's a good question. I think that's probably a showrunner question for Alex Kurtzman and Noga Landau, our co-showrunners. I was writing for people who love Trek, and then I was doing my best to write for people who I wanted to love Trek.
Fascinating.
You know, truly, I would love to sit in a room and just write Star Trek for Star Trek fans only. It is a new world. It's the streaming world. We have to bring in new viewers. Ignoring that is like just not reality. So as much as I would love to write the Ben Cisco love letter that only speaks to people who already know the canon, like I was tasked with also working really hard to handhold and bring in brand new people, some of whom are very young. Had to bring in people who didn't normally watch Star Trek, or who thought Star Trek was too stuffy, or who thought it was too sciencey and too techy, while still honoring what all of us fans love about it.
Here.
What's this?
It's the amount of latinum I'm willing to transfer into your private account to stop this show.
Previously on Star Feelings Academy.
Federation propaganda. Feel-good colonizing bullshit. Brainwash poor kids into fighting the good fight for Big Brother Starfleet.
Black Lives Matter, the NAACP.
Federation propaganda.
I've seen them pick a carcass clean, asshole and all, and I'm talking about a Klingon carcass.
Hey, it's time to go. You clearly had too much. You're slamming it.
Oh my daddy, that is some cosmic poetry right there. Well, the hills are alive with the sound of murder, and I'm white, spent, and ready to be a diplomat.
This is, I would say, arguably the gayest Star Trek by a considerable margin.
For the sake of your valuable time and sanity and my valuable time, and no, there isn't much sanity left after watching this, I am just going to describe to you the events in the order they occurred in this episode with little to no editorial, and this will be easy because basically nothing happens. 30 days after the tragic events on the derelict starship Suzuki, I'm sorry, Kawasaki, I'm sorry, Toyota, I'm sorry, Miyazaki, where Paul Giamatti and the furries hoodwinked the Federation and Holly Hunter, leading to the deaths of Johnny Spocksville and a white straight male, which admittedly is a rare thing in this universe. Everyone is sad for about 3 minutes.
Oh no. Anyway, last week.
But after a tough 6 episodes of not being in school very much, swallowing comm badges, and assaulting Asians in a gay bar in San Francisco, the retardettes of Star Feelings Academy have earned a 4-day spring break. Before she leaves, Holly Hunter informs Genesis that she's going to be recommended for the command program, which will fast track her to captain because she's amazing. But she's worried this might not be because she's amazing, it might be nepotism because she's the daughter of an admiral. Sam the neurodivergent hologram, who was permeable but somehow got phaser damage, is off to a hologram spa. Fishboy looks a little jealous that Jaden is going off with his boyfriend to Ibiza, and apparently Caleb is mad at Holly Hunter for not asking Paul Giamatti about his mommy. Holly Hunter points out that she was busy trying to save the cadets that she put in danger, all while trying to pack a 21st century suitcase, strangely enough the exact same way my wife packs a suitcase, in the 32nd century. Following that, Darren Fishboy gets abducted through a singularity portal. Jaden, after witnessing the abduction, does what he does best and enters the portal, where we find out it's a Kahonian ritual for a prearranged wedding to a woman that was supposed to happen after Fishboy graduates. But because the woman, whose name is Kara's mom, got sick but then got better, it has to happen now, leaving Darren Fishboy conflicted because he'll have to leave Starfleet and Jaden, who Darren asks to be essentially his best man. And now Jaden is conflicted because while he obviously has a crush on Darren, he's worried his other gay boyfriend is off to Ibiza without him. But worst of all, he has to give a best man speech, and from previous episodes, we know that makes him nervous.
Nobody cares.
Meanwhile, on the USS Vagina, Caleb has decided to skip going out on spring break. He's also been ghosting Brett Cooper for 30 days while she recovers on Beta Z after killing all the furries with her feminist empowerment scream. But it also turns out that Genesis skipped out on her trip. Then they play a game of toxic, non-toxic, and sure, I thought it was going to be Caleb and Genesis picking out YouTubers criticizing this show, but it turns out it's just a game of sticking your hands in toxic stuff.
But why?
After that, they have to recapture a warp slug that they let out, and yes, I said warp slug, all while trying not to get caught by Tig Notaro, who is arguing with her lesbian girlfriend, Laura Thok, who's half Jem'Hadar and half Klingon, and I don't even know how that works. No, not the half Jem'Hadar, half Klingon thing, we've already talked about that. No, I'm talking about a Homo sapien being in a sexual relationship with a half Jem'Hadar, half Klingon. And I'll just file that one under don't ask questions you don't want to know the answer to. Then Darren discusses with Jaden, the pressure he is under because he feels a duty to his wife, a duty to his people, a duty to Starfleet. Then they start eyeing each other like they want to do the duty where the duty comes from. Shortly after that, Fishboy makes Jaden change from his Starfleet skirt into a Kahonian evening gown.
No, you cannot.
It's yours. Go blue.
I can't wait for the Mary Sue article. Klingons have always been coded gay, and a Klingon in an evening gown is actually a good thing. Fishboy then breaks up the gay tension by insulting Jaden, saying he bailed on his family, when in truth, Jaden was abandoned by his 2 fathers.
That's racist.
Meanwhile, back on the USS Vagina, Genesis risks getting Caleb and her court-martialed by hacking their way on the bridge, so Genesis can get the letters of recommendation that she manipulated off the command recommendation, so she won't get court-martialed. They get caught by Tig Notaro, who rats them out to Holly Hunter, who gives them a slap on the wrist. We find out Genesis manipulated those letters of recommendation because they mention that she fears she might not be as amazing as everyone thinks she is, and her hero's journey will be complete when she discovers that she really is that amazing. And Caleb finally stops ghosting Brett Cooper by sending her an email. Back on Cojones, Gay Dan finally gives his best man speech, where he not so subtly mentions that Darren Fishboy is only doing this out of duty to his family and Kyra, who was the one who had Darren Fishboy abducted 6 years early before they planned, but somehow it becomes his fault by saying Darren Fishboy was starting this wedding with a lie. So the wedding is called off. Now Kyra is free to be the first female ruler of Cojones with her girlfriend with caterpillar eyebrows. And Darren is free to go back to Starfleet and get involved in a first for Star Trek, a gay love triangle between a Fishboy, a Klingon, and a human.
Oh, that's not right.
And so ends the most excruciatingly boring, insipid, saccharine episode of Kurtzman Trek this season, and Starfleet Academy just keeps hitting bottom. And while next to nothing happened this episode, and it didn't even have a plot, I still have questions. The Cohonian moon where they had the wedding, apparently the ocean dried up because the core stopped spinning. Well, then how does it still have an atmosphere? Wouldn't a slug capable of warp speed be able to break glass, break through a wall, and breach a hull? I think they actually got it confused with teleporting. Speaking of that, something I haven't brought up with Starfleet Academy is apparently you can just transport from anywhere. What's the range of these transporters? And while they have mentioned that these signals can be blocked, you still wouldn't need to use things like shuttlecrafts to warp into downtown San Francisco. And speaking of that, even if you jam these magic transporters, apparently there is a singularity portal device that can be used at will to abduct people from Starfleet Academy. Well, that's a security vulnerability, but now that I think of it, there was an episode just last week where a singularity portal would have come in handy. All Darren had to do was mention, oh, all those cadets that are about to get eaten by furries, we can save them all because my people have a singularity portal device. I have more questions like, are this person's eyebrows about to become butterflies? Who thought it was a good idea to have a shot of a Klingon in a skirt dropping a rock, but it looks like he's dropping a turd? On that note, what is Hollywood's obsession with feminizing black men? And how many more gay love triangles can you set up? Hell, we'll probably get another first for Star Trek, a gay love octagon. Shout out to Disbrew for that one. I mean, we're 7 episodes in, which means, Jesus wept, there's 3 to go. We have a bunch of characters who act like they've known each other for years, yet I challenge anyone to remember any of their names. If you try to apply any logic to this show, you might hurt yourself. And somebody thought it was a good idea to spend $10 million on an episode where a Klingon goes from wearing a skirt to an evening gown. But I will give credit to Alex Kurtzman. He's fooled a lot of stupid people into giving him a lot of money. Unfortunately, it was to destroy one of the greatest science fiction series of all time.
Dr. McCoy is right in pointing out the enormous danger potential in any contact with life and intelligence as fantastically advanced as this. But I must point out that the possibilities, the potential for knowledge and advancement is equally great. Risk. Risk is our business. That's what the Starship is all about. That's why we're aboard her.
I want to fall on my butt and have humiliation. I just can't with the midday energy before you even put my underwear on my butt.
He's dead, Captain.
Previously on Star Trek Starfleet Academy.
I'm Series Acclamation Mill, but in the interest of not being mocked relentlessly by my fellow cadets, I'm going with Sam.
Please repeat. I can't understand.
I was programmed to feel 17, but I've only existed a little over 4 months on Cask.
I still can't understand you.
Sometimes I feel invisible, but mostly awkward.
Bar fight! Just like Cisco! For the emissaries!
I think they're gonna die over there. They don't know what to do. They don't know what to do.
You're okay. You're okay.
Acting.
I can make myself permeable because...
Oh no! What happened? Oh no! How terrible! That's just awful! How terrible! Oh no!
Remember last episode? Of course you didn't, because most of you didn't watch it. Well, in the last episode, the first 3 minutes, everybody was sad, but then they went on spring break, and then everybody came back, and they looked pretty happy at the end. Well, now everybody's back to being sad. And this is all due to the unfortunate events on the USS Kawasaki, where 2 male characters died, and I challenge anyone to remember their names. It opens up with a monologue from the Doctor describing how everyone feels reviewing this show.
I was here the whole time, and nothing has changed.
Brett Cooper is back and fully recovered from her coma that was caused by her feminist empowerment scream that killed all the cannibal furries. The Betazoids gave her a brand new neural inhibitor, which will allow her to use her abilities without self-harm. Yet she is still very sad. They have also transferred her from the War College into Starfleet because somehow that will be less stressful and because they offer therapy. And this is due to the fact that her neural network can't take another episode. But once you see this therapy, I'm not sure this was the best idea. It appears that Darren Fishboy has reverted back into being a bully despite the fact that they spent the entire previous episode showing him go through his personal journey, if that's what you want to call it, and denying the prearranged marriage where he would be the co-ruler of the planet Cajones and deciding that Starfleet was where he wanted to be, mostly because that's where Jaden is. And this brings us to another hallmark of Kurtzman Trek. There's no consistency with the characters or the story throughout the episodes. It's almost like they're written in complete isolation. And I have a theory on this that we'll get to later. So in a scene where the kids are on the bridge in a simulation where they get destroyed, making me wish it wasn't a simulation, and after Tig Notaro speaks a line that unintentionally describes this show,
that was a spectacular failure of teamwork.
Apparently, the kids have been going through the trauma counseling that Admiral Vance had suggested a couple of episodes ago for 2 months, and it isn't enough. So they need a specialist, and it comes in the form of another STD character flaring up. Fan favorite Tilly. And when I say fan favorite, I mean one fan likes her. Played by pre-Ozempic Mary Weissman. This is what she looked like in the show. This is what she looks like now. Watch out for those side effects. And continuing on that hallmark of Kurtzman Trek with character inconsistency, Tilly doesn't even act like she did an STD.
Wakey, wakey, Ractogino and Bakey.
In this, I wouldn't say she's any more or less obnoxious than she is in STD, just a different kind of obnoxious.
I'm on rotation in the Beta Quadrant with the 3rd years. However, we're the Chancellor. This class has been mandated for you, so you get me early.
And how exactly are they going to deal with this deep-seated trauma they have been feeling since the events of the USS Suzuki 2 months ago, except for the previous episode where they weren't feeling it at all? Well, you heard me right at the beginning of the video. It will be therapy through
theater.
Because only theater kids and Hollywood would think you could deal and heal from deep-seated personal trauma by acting like somebody else. Oh, my friends, it gets so much worse. If you didn't think that Alex Kurtzman and his on-crack team of writers was using Star Trek as a political platform,
Black Lives Matter, the NAACP. The goal is not really to promote Star Trek, but to promote these organizations and to use our platform to be able to bring greater awareness to these very, very important messages and places.
No offense, but it sounds like some fucking commie gobbledygook.
Well, I think we can put any questions about Star Trek being used as California state propaganda to bed.
What if I told you that theater is one of the most powerful tools for social and political change? Theater is statecraft. Statecraft is theater.
And yes, the people at Kurtzman Trek really think that much of themselves. But the good news here is nobody's actually watching it outside of content creators, and the writers aren't smart enough to make it effective propaganda. But they are very effective at A, putting you to sleep, and B, making parts of your body cringe that you didn't know was possible.
And for those of you still bristling with confusion and or resentment, I don't care. Tomorrow, we theater.
Pain!
I did try to warn you, but also the awkward body positivity neurodivergent character from STD, of course, picks the awkward body positivity neurodivergent character from SA as her favorite.
Please, change my life, Lieutenant.
Favorite.
So the assignment is they all have to pick a play to help them deal with their trauma. This particular filler episode in a season full of filler episodes focuses on Brett Cooper and everyone's favorite, the body positivity neurodivergent hologram Sam. They have a brief conversation and I understood half of it.
I'm not even up yet, I just can't with their midday energy before I even put my underwear out my butt.
Okay. Gonna be real, I watched that clip about 8 times before turning on the closed caps because I have no clue what she said up to my butt. She did say, and I quote, "I'm not even up yet, and I just can't with your midday energy before I even pull my underwear out of my butt." A quote that I'm sure will go down in the annals of Star Trek history. Now, I can hear you asking the question, why would a hologram need to pull underwear out of her butt? And why would a hologram need a bed? Both good question, but the nature of this conversation that I had to eventually read in closed captions was, they're both sad. After the credits roll featuring 21 producers, proving this is not only a show for theater kids, it's a show for wine aunts in Hollywood. All the women sit around and drink.
What are we having? Something with a proof.
And then we get this piece of exquisite dialogue, which is just essentially an STD reference flaring up again.
We are the women time forgot. Optimism is me paddling my frickin' canoe.
But mostly the women of the now incompetent matriarchy of Starfleet discuss how the kids are going to talk about their feelings.
It's not the load that breaks you, but how you carry it.
What? And they dial the saccharin up to 11 in this one. The next day, Jayden decides to recite some Klingon opera where we get confirmation that Klingons not only have 2 dicks, they have 4 balls. And of course, this being Jayden, he talks about them being consumed.
They've been served the heart and the quadritesticles.
Now he's doing this while he has a cold, so after giving a little bow, Jayden is sent to his room because he has COVID.
I am embattled with Jahmut.
And Jayden is gone for the rest of the episode, and normally I would be grateful for this, but considering what's to come, it makes me miss his brand of cringe, because the rest of this 1 hour and 4 minute episode is solely focused on feelings in space, and the play they pick is Our Town by Thornton Wilder, apparently the greatest American play ever written that I honestly have never heard of, and if anybody tries to shame me for that, they need to understand I really don't care. Now, this is a concept that Star Trek of the past could have made compelling, considering it was in the hands of real artists. But this one was executed with the precision of somebody wielding a chainsaw while simultaneously being electrocuted. Because I looked it up, the play Our Town is about cherishing the simple, everyday moments of life while we can, as humans often fail to appreciate them until death reveals their profound value. Speaking of that, it's those simple moments of human connectivity in a story that work as a foundation to hold the whole thing together, and it's the one thing the writers of Kurtzman Trek are completely incapable of. The discussion of the play is thankfully interrupted by Sam glitching out due to the phaser damage he received on the USS Nakatomi. Now, how did a hologram that was shown to be permeable receive phaser damage? They still haven't fully explained that. And now Sam is dying, and before I get anybody's hopes up, she survives. She has to go back to her home world of Cask with the Doctor and Holly Hunter, and the next 42 minutes of this 1 hour and 4 minute episode are focusing on the Doctor's feelings about living so long and losing so much, the body positivity neurodivergent hologram Sam not being able to process her feelings, and Brett Cooper essentially being unable to process her feelings because they've given her rogue storyline from the X-Men, where she's feeling isolated because she's worried that she'll hurt people with her mental powers, where her classmates seem to be treating her like a monster when she ended up saving everybody with her feminist empowerment scream, and the only people she killed were a bunch of cannibalistic furries. So there's a scene with the class where Brett Cooper won't talk about her feelings. There's a scene in a shuttle where Sam, the neurodivergent body positivity hologram, talks about her feelings to the Doctor, who won't talk about his feelings. And we get this wonderful piece of acting that's just so Sam.
You know what I want? I want to fall on my butt and die of humiliation. And then I want my best friend to make me feel better. I want to change my mind 6 times before ordering, and I'm gonna eat.
Are you stupid or something?
Followed by a scene of Brett Cooper getting drunk because she can't talk about her feelings. Then she wants to ride the brown pony with Caleb, who says no. And I know what you guys are thinking. Most dudes wouldn't say no in this situation, and you would be right. But I would argue this is the one case where a character in Kurtzman Trek was being smart, considering the USS Vagina is the most likely place to get a false Me Too accusation. And after he says no, Brett Cooper tells him to go find Genesis, and then she cries. After that, Brett Cooper goes back to her quarters and talks about her feelings with Genesis, where we get this profound piece of dialogue.
Now I'm just this, I guess. You are just on your way to the next you. Maybe we all are.
I am so deeply moved knowing that we are all going to become the next Brett Cooper. But if you are always on your way to the next you, and I am always on my way to the next me, who's the next I? These are the things I ponder.
Yeah? Well, if you were me, then I'd be you! And I'd use your body to get to the top!
Back on the shuttlecraft on its way to Cask, the hologram homeworld, Holly Hunter is talking to the Doctor, who's still trying to process his feelings while he's taking Sam, the neurodivergent body positivity hologram, back to her homeworld so she can process her feelings. While discussing why Sam picked the play, I gotta look it up again. Oh, Our Town. And the reason why, considering she is probably about to die and hasn't lived very long, is it's important to enjoy the little moments of life, but they have to say it in the most pretentious way.
A moment, as it happens, is just a moment, but when it becomes a memory, blistering with context, emotion, that's when color suddenly erupts on stage. A way of saying it's the mundane thing.
You never think.
Well, I think I can do one better. In Thornton Wilder's magisterial opus Our Town, the existential profundity resides in the poignant admonition to apprehend the ephemeral sanctity of quotidian existence amidst the exonerable march of temporality. So the neurodivergent body positivity hologram named Sam is from a planet called Cask, which exists in a unique configuration of space-time due to its extreme gravitational gradient.
So time passes faster there. Every 3 days on Earth equals 5 years. One counts.
And yes, that's how she acts throughout this series. Anyway, for every year that passes on Earth, roughly 608 pass on Cask. That's why it's odd when the Doctor says this.
How would your world perceive an ancient hologram who has spent his entire existence on Starfleet ships?
Well, they probably see you as an amoeba, considering that the Doctor is 800 years old, which means roughly 486,000 years have passed on Cask in his lifetime. So in truth, it really isn't that odd that he said that, considering the writers didn't do the math on this one. The last third of this episode is excruciatingly boring, so we're going to bang our way through it. Back on the USS Vagina, the kids are still working on the play to help them process their feelings. Again, everyone's still sad about the events of the USS Miyazaki. I'm not really sure why, considering half of them weren't even on the ship, including Brett Cooper's brother, and I couldn't even tell you what the guy's name is now through 8 episodes. And the only people that died that they may or may not have interacted with were white straight male and Johnny Spocksville, who most of them hated. And the people that would have been the most affected, the kids from the War College and Romulan girl, weren't even in this episode. And Brett Cooper is sad and angry because they transferred her from the War College to Starfleet because supposedly they had therapy against her will, and because everyone's treating her like a monster for saving their worthless lives. And not a word of acknowledgement about the entire crew that died on the super secret ship from the super secret base that had the super secret sonic weapon that they were going to use in space. Anyway, after Brett Cooper walks away in a huff, the kids get together later and decide to theater their way through their feelings that half of them shouldn't even be feeling. Meanwhile, back on Cask, Holly Hunter, the Doctor, and Sam talk to Orson. Is anybody going to remember Mork talking to Orson? I'm probably dating myself. And here we have another example of this show not being consistent with their characters. In the previous Sam-centric episode, Orson sounded like this.
We are contacting you for a report. If you disobey us, you will have failed.
And in this episode, Orson sounds like this.
We have heard many stories about you.
And apparently the makers of Cask cannot fix Sam and they just shut her down.
Series acclamation. Terminate.
Now, before you get your hopes up, just a couple of minutes later, they go, just kidding, we weren't going to shut her down. We just don't know how to fix her.
We are not refusing to fix Series acclamation mill. We simply cannot.
The Doctor figures out Sam is broken because she doesn't know how to process all the feelings she's feeling, and the best way to fix it is to give her a white dad. And that's right, they retcon the Doctor in the show as her father, because on Cask, they can live 17 years in a little over a week. And in the end, they cured Sam by giving her a white dad, and the kids theatered their way through their extreme trauma and pain, all while traumatizing the viewers of this show and leaving them to work out their pain on their own. And for the second episode in a row, we get some saccharine music over a slow motion montage of the kids smiling and embracing, and we finally get a meaningful hug between Brett Cooper and Sam, two characters who have barely interacted with each other. And so ends the worst episode of Starfleet Academy, which just so happens to be the worst series within Kurtzman Trek, which is the worst Star Trek within Star Trek. And seeing that there's 2 episodes to go, I will say for now. Lost in the Stars tried to be something deep, weighty, serious, philosophical. And when in truth, we got an episode that was ham-fisted, annoying, nonsensical, hollow, melodramatic, and just plain dumb. And it shouldn't surprise anyone that this episode was written by 2 women with no science fiction experience whatsoever, Jane Maggs and Gaia Viola. And no, writing for past Alex Kurtzman projects is not experience. I think it actually creates inexperience.
Gene Roddenberry had this lightning bolt of an idea, and I think he understood something fundamental about the nature of science fiction and genre storytelling, which is that science fiction is not really about the future, it's about now.
Sheer hubris. I think I swallowed my combat.
This is the prism through which the looking glass, the magnifying glass through which we examine ourselves. The state of humanity, who we are, what we're capable of, and where we're going.
Shut the up.
It was such a powerful idea that it has lasted for 60 years because each iteration of Star Trek has been interpreted and reinterpreted by people who are so inspired by the message of Star Trek.
Yum, yum.
It's made of our, you know.
And you will not meet one person on any of our sets who doesn't love Star Trek.
I'm sorry, I'm allergic to bullshit.
Do you remember like your first time watching and getting into it? Like,
So my first time watching it, I was doing the audition.
what are you excited to share to fans?
I am excited for the fans to dissect absolutely everything that they hate.
I see fans who say we own the IP, we own the property because we've watched it for so many years, which is kind of not really true. It's kind of like the property's kind of owned by the studio, and the studio decides on, to invest in a particular pitch.
They're complaining about Starfleet Academy.
Previously on Star Trek Starfleet Academy.
You brought down a Federation supply vessel and murdered the shuttle pilot to steal food rations.
No, an origami chicken.
You will be placed in a rehabilitation camp.
What? Ah! What's gonna happen to my son?
He'll become a ward of the Federation.
I watch birds.
I'm Series Acclamation Mill, but in the interest of not being mocked relentlessly by my fellow cadets, I'm going with Sam.
You're not a machine, Sam.
Malfunction detected.
I'm Kionian, bitch.
Kylie vomit glitter.
Out!
They were working together the whole time.
Ah, that son of a bitch!
I still owe you something. And believe me, it is coming with a big red bow, a special gift just for you.
As the penultimate episode opens, I have to admit, for the first time with this series, I was actually surprised to hear that the kids had finished the school year.
300th night. Official end of our first academic year.
Considering this is a show called Starfleet Academy, which is supposed to take place in a school, the one thing we haven't seen the kids in a lot is class.
The cadets, things are starting to return to the way they were. They're finally feeling all they've accomplished this year.
Admittedly, the kids have accomplished quite a bit this year, including swallowing comm badges, going to gay bars in San Francisco, and assaulting Asians. Jaden, the first gay Klingon, has worn a couple of skirts and managed to get over his two fathers abandoning him by finding a boyfriend. Darren Fishboy, the straightest bisexual man in existence, is puke glitter, and Sam, the neurodivergent body positivity hologram, has retroactively gotten a white dad. And it wouldn't be an episode of Starfleet Academy without a Stephen Colbert as digital Dean quip.
A friendly reminder that storage rooms are for storage only, so please, store it in your pants.
Now, as the school year ends where no one looked like they went to any actual school, Jaden has a ritual where his fellow cadets have to drink a bowl of splooge to join his chosen family.
Together, we drink Chek as we step away from our past and embrace our new chosen family.
You may or may not have noticed, particularly in genre and stuff that's aimed for kids, that there is a recurring theme of chosen family or found family. And while it's been a trope for a long time, it's been used excessively in recent years. And when we get towards the end of the video, we'll talk about the origins of this message. Now, Caleb walks out of this ritual because he's not willing to give up on his mom, even symbolically. And despite working out his drama with Brett Cooper, they have another argument, and I want you to remember this line.
I really wish I couldn't read you so well.
Meanwhile, Admiral Vance feels the need to report confidential information to the Chancellor of Starfleet Academy, Holly Hunter, and the Chancellor of the War College, the guy who looks like Grandpa from the Munsters. He informs them what Noose Braca stole from the super-secret base with the super-secret ship that had the super-secret sonic weapon to be used in space. And that would be Omega-47, a synthetic variant of the Omega molecule introduced in Voyager. Paul Giamatti also stole a time-delayed device that can house the Omega so it can be used as a mine. He also also detonated one of them in an uninhabited part of space in a show of power, shredding space and subspace, making warp travel through it impossible for millions of years. Now, how did Nerdrotic, who essentially started the season as a space terrorist and scavenger who just wanted to steal a warp engine, go from that to breaking into a super secret Federation base and stealing an apocalyptic weapon, who is now in the command of a giant fleet of warp-capable can openers and has the ability to bring back the burn, something this show hasn't sufficiently explained? I have no idea. Maybe that's something they will enlighten us on later on. As you probably didn't know, because most of you haven't watched this show, and I did not mean for that to rhyme, Caleb has been trying to contact his mom all season and has been incapable of doing it until he talked about his feelings with Sam, who had a eureka moment. He checked an old password, and wouldn't you know it, he found 2 years of messages from Tatiana Maslany. And all this is happening while Starfleet is establishing their new center of operations on Beta Z. So just in case you're keeping track at home, in Kurtzman Trek, in the future of Star Trek canon, the Federation is absolutely decimated, and then it rebuilds and moves from San Francisco to Beta Z. The Klingon homeworld of Kronos and the Romulan homeworlds of Romulus and Remus have been destroyed, turning them both into an immigration allegory, and the Vulcans are no longer the Vulcans.
Can't believe I forgot that he joined.
I can't believe I forgot to not go Vulcan anymore.
After Caleb overhears Holly Hunter and the Chancellor of the War College that looks like Grandpa from the Munsters saying that they're going to pull all Starfleet vessels into Federation space due to the threat of Paul Giamatti's Noose Braca, Caleb decides that this is the best time to leave to go find his mom, but not before he has a quick conversation with Brett Cooper, who 5 minutes ago just said she wished she couldn't read him so well, but apparently she can't read that he was going to leave. After that, Caleb the Gary Stu is able to steal a shuttle pretty easily.
Barely an inconvenience.
And most of his friends won't let him leave without him, including Darren Fishboy, Genesis, and Sam, who can just teleport anywhere. I wonder if they'll do that later because, man, that would be useful. Darren Fishboy pukes up some more glitter, and they finally make it to the planet Ukek, where Caleb's mom is Tatiana Maslany. And it's a good thing that when Caleb decided to steal a shuttle pretty easily on a whim, and then 3 of his friends decided to join him last minute, that they took the time to pack the proper attire to go to generic sci-fi underworld planet. And when they arrive, Caleb, our resident Gary Stu, is able to find his mom, Tatiana Maslany, pretty easily.
Barely an inconvenience.
And when they get back together, they have a reunion that would make Oedipus blush. Ugh, Hollywood, what is wrong with you? Anyway, Brett Cooper, who earlier said she could read Caleb pretty easily, but then couldn't read him when he was leaving, has finally discovered that he left. From Jay Den, and they go and rat them all out to Holly Hunter. And to make things worse, Starfleet has received intelligence that Paul Giamatti's Venari Rawl is about to annex that planet. Just a quick thought, remember in the first couple of episodes, of course you don't, you didn't watch it, where the USS Vagina had a full crew never to be seen again? Well, apparently they didn't need them, because after they dropped everyone off at Beta Z, the USS Vagina is able to be piloted by Tig Notaro, Robert Picardo, and Holly Hunter, along with the stowaways Brett Cooper and Gay Den. And when they get caught, we get a perfect representation of what it's like watching Holly Hunter act in this show.
Kidding me? What is wrong with you two? Explain yourselves. I really don't. No.
And it's a good thing they're on their way, because wouldn't you know it, the Venari Rawl have just annexed Ukek, and they captured Genesis, Sam, the neurodivergent body-positive hologram, and Darren Fishboy, who Tatiana Maslany is willing to let die so she can take off with her boy Caleb, who refuses to leave his friends to die. So after a quick skirmish where Tatiana Maslany was kicking the crap out of dudes a foot taller than her that weighed about 100 more pounds, Alex Kurtzman rips off a scene from Terry Metalis' Picard Season 3 where the USS Vagina goes down just above the surface and saves the kids and Tatiana Maslany, where Sam, the neurodivergent body-positive hologram, utters a line that I'm sure once again will go down in the annals of Star Trek history. And yes, she said, now this is a flex. But things get so much dumber. After the USS Vagina gets caught by Paul Giamatti's Venari Rawl, they detach the saucer section, which is essentially already detached on this stupid spaceship. This is when they lay out the single dumbest thing, not just in Kurtzman Trek or Star Trek, in all of science fiction. Paul Giamatti's criminal organization, which started from such humble beginnings, somehow managed to put a ring of Omega-47 mines around the entirety of Federation space.
You're forming a ring around Federation territory.
They maneuvered us into a defensive position and then put a wall around the entire Federation. They put us in a box.
And yes, they described it as a ring. Now, they should have probably called it a bubble, but they also mentioned earlier in the season that they put a wall around a planet.
So they put up that psionic wall around their planetary system and stayed behind it for over 100 years.
We're not dealing with the best and brightest here, but it gets so much worse. Keeping in mind that these are the same window lickers in Star Trek who gave us sonar in space, fire in space, and a sonic weapon in space, because surrounding the entirety of Federation space by what is described as a ring and then a wall and then a box leads to a lot of questions like how. Good thing everyone's favorite Ginge Dave Cullen did the math on this, so I don't have to. He basically asked how many mines would it take and how long would it take to surround the entirety of Federation space. If you look at Federation space as a sphere, which you should because it's three-dimensional space, the volume would be 201 million square light years.
Space, it says, is big, really big. You just won't believe how vastly, hugely, mind-bogglingly big it is.
And what Dave, with the help of ChatGPT, came up with is it would take roughly 10,000 ships, 500 to 1,000 years to surround the entirety of Federation space with 570 octillion mines, which is more than a trillion, less than a sextillion, my favorite by the way, and just short of a shitload.
Has anybody got a mine? I don't know. Somebody's got to go back and get a load of mines.
But there's a little bit of a problem here because in the beginning of the finale of Starfleet Academy, they mentioned how many mines it took.
Our analysts confirmed that the wall is made up of hundreds of individual mines.
Apparently, it only takes hundreds of individual mines with an Omega-47 particle, and they're connected by an overlapping energy field.
And each surrounded by an energy field that will detonate the mines if breached.
The energy fields are overlapping.
The only teeny tiny problem with that is the energy of those overlapping energy fields only travels at light speed.
Well, that's a design flaw.
Some of the Kurtzman fans might argue that Federation space in the 32nd century is smaller than it is in the 24th century. So instead of Federation space taking up 201 million square light years, let's just say it takes up 50 million square light years. We'll also overestimate the blast radius of Omega-47 and say it's 20 light years. It would still take 48,000 mines.
Solid B, good calculating, but I am gonna have to dock points for the attitude.
And let's just pretend that the mines have some magical doohickey that can instantaneously connect them over thousands of light years of distance that were somehow implemented by a half a dozen ships that look like can openers commanded by a space incel. And what you end up with is something really dumb, and it's called Kurtzman Trek. And why am I staying on this one singular point in a bad show within a bad series for so long? I mean, aside from the fact that it is the dumbest thing in Star Trek, a series that gave us all the dilithium exploding across the universe at once because a retarded Kelpian kid was crying for his mama. The point is, this is Star Trek, not a remake of Matlock. It has a built-in audience that meticulously picks apart the stuff that they like. It's part of a genre known as science fiction, which requires a little bit of science. But in truth, it's fan fiction, and it might be giving that a bad name. Speaking of dumb fan fiction, we finally get the reunion of Holly Hunter and Caleb's mom, Tatiana Maslany, who seems determined to destroy all the goodwill she got from Orphan Black by choosing some of the most insufferable roles. Personally, I think she outdid She-Hulk in this one with a lot less screen time, because she's constantly acting like the victim, although she was the armed accomplice of a murderer of a Federation agent who escaped from prison and joined a terrorist organization. Sure, she said she was just trying to steal some food in a universe with replicators. Tatiana Maslany is not very happy that her son is working with the Federation, and the reunion with Holly Hunter obviously doesn't go down very well, but it is quickly interrupted when the Venari Rawl attack the saucer section of the USS Vagina, which looks like a space battle between can openers and a plate. I guess the saucer section of the USS Vagina doesn't have transporter inhibitors because Paul Giamatti beams aboard. And respect to Paul Giamatti, he's a great actor, and he is trying to chew some scenery with the worst dialogue imaginable.
Is this like an enemy of my enemy thing? Enemies in law? Come on, guys, I made it funny. Laugh!
Oh, Kurtzman Trek, we're laughing at you, not with you. I guess the good news is a lot of characters as the series progressed just disappeared. I Swallow My Comm badge hasn't been seen in weeks. Laura Thok, the half Jem'Hadar, half Klingon lesbian girlfriend of Tig Notaro, has been diminished. The War College is all but gone, and the cadets outside of Caleb Meir have been sidelined in the finale, which was directed by the guy whose name I can't pronounce, who just so happens to be the director of Section 31, which was nominated for 5 Razzies. What are the Razzies? They are the Academy Awards codes for the worst of the worst from Hollywood. And if you thought the ring or wall or box around the entirety of Federation space was stupid, wait till you hear this. After hiding the kids in the airlock, because if you raise the air pressure, it will hide their life signatures, Paul Giamatti abducts Tatiana Maslany and Holly Hunter, putting Captain Tig Notaro in charge of the USS Subaru. The Doctor was left behind as well, and when the Venari Rawl attack, he uses his over 800-year-old mobile emitter to extend the holographic matrix to make it look like the ship blew up when it really didn't. And how did I know this happened despite seeing it with my own eyes? Well, thanks to secondary viewing, the writers felt the need to tell me this happened twice within the space of 30 seconds.
The Doctor's holographic decoy works, Commander Rito. He extended his matrix through the deflector dish to create a hologram.
Well, that's a neat trick. Why wouldn't every ship do that, to have a decoy or multiple ships? That would have come in handy in episode 1 when the Venari Rawl attacked for the first time and they were essentially in the same situation. But that's yet another hallmark of Kurtzman Trek, introducing space magic that can pretty much easily get them out of any situation, but conveniently forgetting about it in future episodes or later on in the same episode. Kind of like Sam, the neurodivergent body positivity hologram who can be permeable except when she's not and can teleport anywhere except when she doesn't. So after the Doctor performs some god-tier space magic, he comes back and he can't speak clearly, and it's totally supposed to remind you of Darmok, one of the best TNG episodes, and yet that's another hallmark of Kurtzman Trek, ripping off better Star Trek. Oh, but it doesn't end there. In the meantime, the cadets are released from the airlock and they are now the crew of the USS Subaru, commanded by the king of lesbians in Hollywood, Tig Notaro. And let me tell you, nobody plays Tig Notaro like Tig Notaro.
Bingo.
And for some reason, through most of this episode, they don't feel the need to put out the fires on the bridge. Meanwhile, somewhere in space, speaking of ripping off Star Trek, Paul Giamatti is putting Holly Hunter and the Federation on trial. Just like TNG's first episode Encounter at Farpoint, except this time the judge isn't Q, it's Tatiana Maslany. And it's broadcast on the Venari Rawl News Network, otherwise known as VNN, and I guess in 1,000 years they're still using lower thirds. And again, I'd like to point out that Paul Giamatti's Venari Rawl organization is really something. It's probably one of the most impressive things in all of Star Trek, from their humble beginnings of stealing food and medical supplies and taking the income from that and being able to build, feed, and pay an army, and also build a fleet of ships that look like kitchen utensils that have thus far incapacitated a Federation ship, the USS Vagina, twice. No, correction, 3 times, and break into a super secret Federation base with a super secret ship that had a super secret sonic weapon to be used in space, which was essentially a decoy because they somehow got the intelligence that there was a super secret apocalyptic weapon on the super secret base that was lightly guarded that they could steal. Now, their intelligence gathering capability is next level. What happened to Section 31? Oh, and to add on all of that, they have their own news network. Maybe they should be in charge. Like I said, they're a pretty impressive organization, but I have to point something out. Despite the fact that they had perfectly operational tractor beams earlier on in the episode, they had to use cables to tie up what's left of the USS Vagina. And considering I've been reviewing this show for over 10 weeks, you will forgive me for wanting to get this over with. We're not going to talk about any of the interpersonal drama, which is just nauseating. You would also expect for there to be some sort of big space battle at the end of some Kurtzman Trek. Well, this one is just pure monologuing. That's right, it's just Paul Giamatti and women talking. It turns out that the ring of mines that is surrounding the entirety of Federation space is controlled by a subspace signal, which is connected to a detonator device, which is in the possession of Paul Giamatti. The lesbians and the space cadets need to come up with some way to disrupt the signal. And it's a good thing something incredibly convenient happened after that. Through all the Doctor's gobbledygook he was speaking after performing some god-tier magic, he figured out a way to stabilize Omega-47. And if you're asking, wouldn't it need to be stabilized to be able to put it into a mine, otherwise it would explode because it wasn't stabilized?
Don't ask questions. Just consume product and then get excited for next product.
So now the neurodivergent body positivity hologram Sam needs to develop an algorithm to stabilize the Omega-47, which has already been stabilized. And the rest of the cadets have to figure out where this trial is happening and find and save Tatiana Maslany and Holly Hunter, despite the fact that she's wearing a comm badge that can be tracked. And the solution for this problem? Well, you're going to love this. Caleb and Brett Cooper go to his safe space, talk about their feelings, and they figure out a way for Brett Cooper to go through Caleb's mind to find his mom. How are they going to accomplish this? Well, Brett Cooper finally realizes she needs to remove the inhibitor from her neck, the symbol of patriarchal oppression. And once she does that, she realizes there is nothing wrong with her power. She was great all along, just like in Captain Marvel. Meanwhile, on what's left of the USS Vagina that's tied to can openers with cables, the trial of the Federation has commenced. And yes, just like on the bridge of the USS Vagina, there is fires for ambiance. We learn that Paul Giamatti's character was just a simple half Tellarite, half Klingon who played tic-tac-toe in the dirt.
Kill time just playing tic-tac-toe in the dirt.
Now, how would a half Klingon, half Tellarite know what tic-tac-toe was when they haven't been to Earth? Don't know. So when his dad took a shot at some supply ships because I guess they wanted to steal food, and why doesn't anybody think of stealing replicators in this show? But whatever. According to Paul Giamatti, the Federation retaliated and decimated their village. Then Holly Hunter makes this statement, which is not necessarily true.
There is no occasion in the history of Starfleet when we have opened fire on civilians.
You might want to ask the Maquis that when they f***ed with a guy named Benjamin Cisco.
You expect me to believe that a decorated Starfleet officer, the pride of the service, is going to poison an entire planet?
That's exactly what I'm going to do. Commander, launch torpedoes.
And the judge in this trial is Tatiana Maslany. Let's keep in mind that this is a woman who joined a terrorist organization to steal food in a galaxy full of replicators, where she was an armed accomplice to murder of a Federation officer, sentenced to prison as she should have been, then escaped prison with the help of the terrorist organization, who the show represents as a victim, and she gives a speech that makes the Barbie feminist speech sound reasonable.
What did you risk for me? What did the Federation risk? I needed what they said they believed in. I needed understanding and decency. I needed you.
And somehow the running theme here is the Federation is in the wrong because they separated a woman from her child. I wonder what they're trying to say there. But let's be real. Hollywood writing a woman accepting accountability is about as likely as you getting struck by lightning twice and surviving on your way to collect winnings from a lottery that you didn't enter. Or I'll do one better. It's about as likely as an episode of Starfleet Academy being watchable. And even when Holly Hunter tells Tatiana Maslany and Noose Braca about the life of the Federation officer that they killed, Tatiana Maslany still finds Holly Hunter and the Federation guilty. And she had the power to pass a sentence. Now, what was that going to be? Was Holly Hunter going to be sentenced to death? Was the Federation going to be trapped in the ring forever or destroyed? Who knows? Guess we'll never find out, because Sam, the neurodivergent body positive hologram, figured out the algorithm to stabilize the Omega-47 that has already been stabilized. And that was preceded by Caleb going to what was left of the USS Vagina and giving a speech on the power of chosen family.
I can be part of a community.
And poor Paul Giamatti, I hope that paycheck was good, because it turns out his character Noose Braca's entire motivation for hating the Federation was a misconception. It was his dad who ignited the atmosphere when he missed the shot on the Starfleet vessel and destroyed the village.
Lies and propaganda!
No, it's science.
Isn't it rich in a show that has Holly Hunter in the most smug way possible invoking science in a science fiction show with some of the dumbest science I've ever seen, followed by this line with some real subtle messaging. I'm wondering if you can pick it up.
You never grew up. So the question I'd ask to all these people watching, is this the person you want to follow into the future?
So Holly Hunter and the power of the matriarchy, along with the lesbian and the cadets on the USS Subaru, saves the day, and the Federation shows up with their fleet of scrap metal and locks up Space Trump. But what happened to Tatiana Maslany? You know, the woman who joined a terrorist organization and was the armed accomplice in a murder of a Federation officer, went to prison as she should, but then escaped with the help of the terrorist organization, and then sat in judgment over Holly Hunter and the Federation and was nanoseconds away from sentencing them to death. Well, of course, she's forgiven because she's a woman. But to be fair, that's Hollywood morality on full display. Remember, this is the same industry that had a woman write and direct a movie where Wonder Woman SA'd a guy, and after Wanda Maximoff enslaved and tortured men, women, and children of a town, in WandaVision, we were told this.
They'll never know what you sacrificed for them.
And one that doesn't get talked about enough, Rachel Weisz's character in Black Widow, who was essentially the female Mengele and mentally enslaved hundreds of women, was allowed to walk free. And that's just to name a few, and we shouldn't be surprised. And the show ends with a quick shot that encapsulates everything that Starfleet Academy is and Kurtzman Trek is. A couple of lesbians holding hands. And the underlying theme of all of Starfleet Academy, again, is chosen family, which has its origins in Marxism. Marxist theory critiques the traditional nuclear family as a capitalistic tool for reproducing labor, enforcing gender roles, and securing inheritance. So ends the first season, or second to last season, of Star Trek Starfleet Academy, the worst season of television to be released in 2026 that thankfully no one watched. But this is where we enter the worst point for a franchise, and I hate to call these franchises, but that's what they become. They used to be beloved stories, but now they are just product, and that stage we're entering is apathy. And here we return to the commonalities with Doctor Who Series 15, The Acolyte, and Starfleet Academy, which is much worse than The Acolyte. All three have now completely lost their identity because they didn't course correct when they had a chance, and now they're just desperate and lost. And what kind of shape are these franchises in now? Well, the proof is in the pudding. The Acolyte was canceled, Kathleen Kennedy is leaving, and the first Star Wars movie to hit the theaters in 6 years is an episode of The Mandalorian. And things are far more grim with Doctor Who. Disney canceled the show, the BBC is uncertain of its future, and the only thing they have coming up is a Russell T Davies penned Christmas special, and they're having trouble finding a doctor. But the worst news might be with Star Trek, considering there's still 3 more seasons of Kurtzman Trek to go: Starfleet Academy Season 2 and Strange New Worlds Season 4 and 5. And my guess is these were rushed out because Alex Kurtzman knew his employment status would be in question, which it is. And the saddest part is the fans have been trying to warn these corporations for years in vain, and now they have taken timeless stories and stamped them with an expiration date, which has long passed, and you can track the decline of pop culture with the decline of Star Wars, Doctor Who, and Star Trek. You see, the fans cared far more about the legacy of Star Trek than the people who actually own it. The fans that Disney, the BBC, and Paramount treated like dirt. The fans that they are going to eventually have their hand out to, begging them to come back. Paramount has said they have 2 movies in development when Star Trek is a TV series, but what the hell are they going to be about, and what are you going to do? Because you only have 3 options: retcon, reboot, or continuation. And I challenge anyone to pitch me a movie that would get not just Star Trek fans, normies butts in the seats. And one of the biggest things Star Wars, Doctor Who, and Star Trek have in common, they would be better off if they hadn't made any for the last 10 years. And while it's fun and easy to mock the hell out of Kurtzman Trek, none of this actually makes me happy. I would have rather had good Star Trek to talk about. And I think the real end came with 765874 Unification, a fan film that was the perfect requiem and goodbye to our old friend. But the good news is, it really isn't a goodbye, because we can revisit that friend as much as we want, because they will never be able to take away those weekends you spent watching a Star Trek marathon, or going with your best friend over the summer of '82 and watching Wrath of Khan 10 times in the theater, all that time watching Star Trek with your mom or dad or both, and that first time you showed Star Trek to your kids, all the time debating in forums or at comic conventions, or arguing which is a better class of ship, Galaxy or Constitutional, and it's obviously Constitutional. And while Kurtzman Trek exists to divide the fandom, old Star Trek, real Star Trek, continues to unite it. Because unlike Kurtzman Trek, which likes to obsess over things like identity and discard the older fandom in search of the mythical modern audience that doesn't exist, Kurtzman Trek's biggest failure is their obsession over identity, which only accomplishes dividing the fandom. Star Trek tells stories of the human condition with universal themes and morality tales that are for everyone. And despite being filled with aliens and strange new worlds, of all the series I've encountered, Star Trek is the most human.
Nerdrotic.com.
Starfleet Academy is done after season 2.
We need to get this reaction and show it to Paramount, man.